To enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. I transmigrated into a book and became the mistress of a Marquis manor. The good news is that the Marquis manor is wealthy and prestigious, possessing a massive fortune for me to spend as I please. The bad news is that my husband Stepson, my son in name, is the lovesick male supporting character in the original story. When he grows up, he is destined to spend money even more recklessly than I do. According to the plot, 80% of the Marquis manor's assets are burned by him just to save the heroine and fight against the male lead. I look down at the 9-year-old boy standing in front of me. His name is Landon Chen. His skin is dark, his demeanor docile, and his eyes are cast down, hiding his emotions so that no one can read him. But I know very well that he is pretending to be obedient. Inside that small body hides a massive rage. That anger has never dissipated. Instead, it grows with him day by day, which is why he causes such a great catastrophe later on. My thoughts were interrupted when butler Lewis cleared his throat softly. "Madam, where should we arrange for the young master to stay?" In the original book, the original owner threw Landon into a remote, desolate courtyard and ignored him completely. He lived alone for several years, taking care of himself, trying his best to lower his presence, quiet and obedient like an invisible man. It wasn't until one day, when he revealed an outstanding talent for reading and was praised by his teachers, admired by his peers, and hailed as a prodigy, that his father finally noticed him. Only then did he truly become the legitimate eldest son of the Chen family. After that, he entered the struggle for power, forced his father to give up authority, caused the death of the original owner, me, manipulated the Marquis manor, fought with the male lead, forced himself on the heroine, and finally caused the collapse of the Marquis manor while he patted his butt and went off to become a monk. The story ends with an epilogue stating that he mastered Buddhist teachings, translated countless classics, and was praised by the world. People lamented his tragic fate. He was indeed very pitiful. I can imagine how miserable it must be for a 9-year-old child to be thrown into the backyard and left to fend for himself. But the innocent people in the Marquis manor who were implicated by him were even more pitiful. After all, not everyone had wronged him. Since I was here, naturally, I could not let the situation continue like this. I spoke gently, breaking the silence. "Let the young master stay in my courtyard in the East Wing. Landon, is that okay with you?" Landon looked up, staring at me in astonishment. His dark eyes were filled with doubt, as if he only confirmed I was actually talking to him when he met my focused gaze. He lowered his eyelashes and said, looking slightly embarrassed, "I am not called Landon. My name is Rover. Rover." In the book, when he appeared, he was already called Landon. I thought that was his real name. It turns out there was such a dark history. I chuckled softly, but then immediately couldn't smile anymore. "My name is Flora. Flora Song is your stepmother." Landon's lips curled slightly, but he quickly lowered his head, pretending nothing had happened. I was speechless. Rover and Flora, a child and the child's mother. What a rustic combination. It was too incredibly folksy. We had to change them. Absolutely change them all. I immediately ordered butler Lewis to go to the Yamen to handle this matter. From now on, the young master will be called Landon. Lan, as in the orchard of a gentleman. Ding, as in Mount Jingting, I explained. I hope the young master will have a character as noble as a flower amidst gentlemen, and as tough and loyal as a great mountain. While we were at it, I decided to change my name to Grace Song. Grace, for elegance and good seasons, hoping that from now on everything will go as wished, and every year will be peaceful. Landon's eyes flickered slightly, his expressionless face seemed to show a bit of change. I ordered a young servant to help Landon wash and bathe. Not long after, a chaotic noise came from the East Wing. When I walked in, I only saw the servant clumsily trying to persuade him to take off his clothes. Landon had a look of defensiveness, clutching his clothes tightly, acting as if strangers should not come near. I waved my hand to dismiss the servant first, then I said gently, "Can you tell me the reason? It's hard to scrub your own back when bathing alone. I'm afraid it won't be clean. Or if you want, I can help scrub your back for you." Landon's deep eyes became even colder. He lowered his head and replied indifferently, "I can wash myself. I can reach my back." I sighed softly. "So someone must have badmouthed me in front of you, saying that I don't like you, right? I know being a stepmother isn't easy. Even if I pour out my heart and soul, I'm afraid you still won't believe or love me. I am truly foolish. My husband won't come home, and my son won't acknowledge me as his mother. My destiny is so bitter." I covered my face and cried, "Boo! Hoo! But regrettably, there wasn't a single tear, so I just trembled my shoulders twice to get by. Landon was silent for a long time before finally speaking, his tone emotionless. Too fake. I was speechless. Apologies for my poor acting soiling his eyes. Then he spoke again softly, his voice barely a whisper. I don't hate you. I'm just afraid you will despise me. He slowly rolled up his sleeves. On his arms, crisscrossing wounds appeared clearly. I was startled and immediately lifted his shirt to check. His back was covered in dense whip marks. Just looking at it was terrifying. There were white scars, and red, inflamed ones, new wounds. My chest felt tight, aching in waves, as if I myself had just been whipped. Who beat you? Landon didn't answer. His face was gloomy, his eyes deep, flashing with a hint of hatred. But he quickly retracted it, hiding it all at the bottom of his eyes as he lowered his head. He carefully covered his body again. The softness he had shown me just a moment ago vanished, returning to his usual distant toughness. Perhaps he thought that even if I knew, as a stepmother, I couldn't do anything for him. In the book, I had only skimmed this part and didn't know much about what he had gone through. I understood that for a child whose father joined the army and whose mother died early, having to live with relatives would not be an easy life. But I never expected that he not only lived a hard life but was also cruelly abused. I immediately grabbed his hand and ordered Butler Lewis without hesitation, hurry, invite Dr. Wayne, prepare the horses, and call more men. We are returning to the village immediately. Landon's eyes flashed with shock, his face full of astonishment, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Until I was riding a horse with him, galloping all the way back to the countryside, did he gradually believe that I really wanted to take him back to his old home. On the way, he was a bit awkward and asked cautiously, "What are we going back to the village for?" I glanced at him and said slowly, "Revenge." At that moment, I vaguely understood why the adult Landon became so cruel. Because from a young age he suffered too many grievances, with no one to defend him and no power to resist. That hatred just smoldered and grew up with him. As years passed, the resentment accumulated, gradually forming a person who was enduring yet vicious, fake yet indifferent, but who desperately craved affection. That is why just one gentle word of encouragement from the heroine was enough to shake him deeply. And that is why, when he gained power, he began his extreme revenge, eventually being spat upon by 10,000 people. As for me, what I have to do is uproot the seed of hatred in his heart, not letting it rot into a festering wound over the years. Neither he nor I knew how to ride a horse, so we had to let the guards hold us as we rode. He was very good at enduring. Even though his thighs were rubbed red, he didn't utter a single word of complaint. I was protected by a female guard, but I also felt extremely uncomfortable. This was the first time in my life riding a horse. It felt like the skin on my thighs was about to be torn off, burning like fire. But I couldn't delay. It took Landon 3 days to travel from his hometown to the capital. If we returned too slowly this time, I feared the wounds on his back would heal. By then, trying to hold the culprits accountable would lack evidence. Riding a horse was exhausting, but half a day was enough. By the afternoon, we had set foot in the village of his old home. The scenery here was beautiful, with green mountains and blue water, and kitchen smoke curling up. The villagers had finished dinner and were leisurely walking and chatting. We entered the village with great fanfare. Someone recognized Landon and ran to the Chen family home to report the news. I deliberately slowed down. When we arrived at the door of Landon's Uncle Simon and Aunt Sandra, a crowd had indeed gathered. Everyone looked at us curiously. Simon, Chen and Sandra came out to welcome us. Smiles on their faces, but their eyes flashed with guilt. When they looked at Landon, their gaze revealed a hint of warning. Landon hurriedly lowered his head, daring not to look back at them. I didn't force him to say a word. I just coldly gave an order. Drag these 2 immoral wretches out and beat them for me. The guards immediately took action. In just a moment, Simon, Chen and Sandra were beaten until they fell to the ground, unable to move. Simon Chen rolled his eyes and yelled aggressively, "You shrewish woman, you dare to beat me. Wait until my big brother comes back, I'll tell him to divorce you. And you little brat, I spent so much effort raising you, and this is how you repay me." Aunt Sandra also chimed in, "We are Rover's elders. So what if we disciplined him? He is lazy, greedy, and cunning. We beat him rightfully, in accordance with heavenly principles." With such a tone, it seemed they still had enough energy to argue. I intended to dismount gracefully and teach them a proper lesson, but the horse was too high, and I didn't dare to jump. Finally, I had to turn around and awkwardly slide down the horse, bottom first. Oh, how embarrassing. Move on. A female guard supported me. A smile flickered on her lips, hard to suppress. In contrast, Landon, without anyone teaching him, jumped down from the horse very proficiently, with a dashing posture. He landed lightly and walked to my side, his eyes carrying a bit of trust and reliance. I rolled up his sleeves and shouted coldly, "My son's fathered Silverback every year, hoping you would treat him kindly. And the result is you raising the child like this." The whip marks on Landon's body made the people around suck in a cold breath, but in the countryside, adults beating children wasn't uncommon. Immediately, someone stepped forward to act as a peacemaker, defending Simon Chen. Without waiting for me to speak, Landon decisively took off his shirt, revealing all the wounds on his body. Seeing that scene, the crowd that was about to speak up for them suddenly fell silent. Instead, they began to criticize Simon Chen for being cruel, saying he had no humanity and that beating a child like that was no different from an animal. I felt somewhat comforted. Perhaps his action just now was to stand on my side. He is actually a good child. Grateful, able to distinguish right from wrong, understanding the situation. It's just that he was too unlucky, lonely since childhood, with no one to protect him, no one to teach him what it's like to be loved. That is why he was so easily moved by a gentle sentence, easily swayed by a warm look. But also because of that, when he grew up and had power in his hands, he would desperately want to verify if he was worthy of being loved, then do extreme things, hurting others and hurting himself. I don't think what he did was right, nor do I want to make excuses for him. I just think, if possible, I want to do something for him, to give him a chance to truly step out of the darkness, find himself, and find the destiny that belongs to him. I helped Landon put his clothes back on, then grabbed the horse whip, and without another word, whipped the couple directly. "Simon Chen, I am your eldest sister, in law, and also your superior," I declared. "If you don't know how to be human, then let me teach you, both stupid and evil. Your hearts are not only greedy but also dark and filthy. Someone who can abuse a child like this can only be an immoral scoundrel. If your brother knows his own flesh and blood was tortured like this and can still swallow this anger, that's his business. As for me, today I cannot swallow it. You just take it. If in the future I really get divorced, I will come back with a knife and chop you two to death. Anyway, a divorced woman can't live well. Dragging you down to hell with me before I die would be worth it." Simon Chen and his wife screamed miserably, moaning and begging. But I could hear it was fake. The acting was terrible. Speaking perfunctorily just to get beaten less. I recognized it immediately. Just then, a child rushed out, shouting, "Don't bully my parents." He rushed over to shield Simon Chen and his wife. I had to stop. Aunt Sandra immediately hugged the child tightly, her eyes full of resentment sweeping over me. Then looking at Landon. That look did not hide her murderous intent. I knew if she could do it all over again, she absolutely would not hesitate to kill Landon. But when hugging her own child, her face was full of pity. The boy broke free from her arms and rushed over kick, and hit Landon. "I'll beat you to death. I'll beat you to death. You dare to fight for food with me, and bring people to bully my parents. I'll beat you to death." Landon dared not fight back, he just retreated, curled up, and held his head as he squatted down. I narrowed my eyes slightly and signaled Butler Lewis to pull the brat away. Immediately, Simon Chen and his wife screamed like crazy, cursing me as vicious, wishing me a terrible death, while crying and begging me not to hurt their son. That child's name is Rocky. He is the only son of the couple. I bent down to look at Landon. "Does he beat you often?" "Yes," he whispered. Aunt Sandra immediately yelled, "So what if kids fight? Which family doesn't have kids scraping with each other? If adults intervene, what kind of teaching is that? If you're afraid of losing, don't play." It sounded reasonable, but it was clearly a fallacy. I tilted my head and asked Landon, "Do you want to fight him?" His eyes lit up for a moment, but he immediately glanced at Simon Chen and his wife, then shook his head slightly. I gently encouraged him, "Just try. Even if you lose, it doesn't matter." Landon still hesitated. I didn't rush him, just looked at him calmly with eyes full of goodwill. Simon Chen huffed coldly, and Aunt Sandra looked like she was waiting to see a good show. Rocky snorted and cursed. "If you're brave, come at me. See if I don't beat you to death. Don't think just because that vicious woman defends you that I don't dare to strike." Landon got truly angry. He immediately rushed forward, throwing a punch straight at Rocky's face. But he only looked cool for 3 seconds. Right after that, he was pinned down by Rocky and beaten relentlessly. I didn't stop it, I just stood by and watched to prevent Rocky from playing dirty. Rocky won and was extremely smug. Simon Chen's whole family was full of gloating joy, as if their son was truly a dragon or phoenix among men. I stepped forward to help Landon up. He lowered his head, his face smeared with dirt, eyes red, his gaze gloomy with a mix of anger and humiliation. He wanted to shake off my hand, but I held it tighter. He struggled a few times, couldn't get free, and finally obediently let me hold him. I told Butler Lewis to arrange accommodation for us to stay the night, then ordered Simon Chen and his wife to clear out a room. Aunt Sandra was immediately annoyed. "On what grounds do you order us?" I didn't answer, raising the whip and striking Simon Chen once. Aunt Sandra was furious. "If you have ability, hit me. What does hitting my husband count for?" So I whipped him a few more times. Simon Chen dodged and yelled, "Hurry up and go. Why talk so much?" Rocky was about to rush over again. "I don't care this time, keep whipping." Aunt Sandra panicked and immediately hugged Rocky tight. I'm going right now." Landon and I stayed in their house. Dr. Wayne, who came with us, checked his injuries. He sighed as he looked, and when he left, he told me there were some old scars that looked 4 or 5 years old. I calculated silently. Landon's father was drafted into the army about 4 years ago, meaning as soon as Landon came to live here, Simon Chen had started abusing him. How could a human heart be so cruel? I took a towel and wiped his face. He obediently let me do it. Just the two of us remained. He whispered, "I made you lose face today." I lifted the small face of the child in front of me and rubbed it like kneading duff. Then I smiled and said, "Lost face where? You made me proud. You dared to take off your shirt in front of everyone because you stood on my side, not wanting people to misunderstand that I was bullying others. You didn't intend to fight Rocky. But when he called me an ugly woman, you immediately charged. You protected me, I'm too touched to even say. Before this, you never fought, yet for me, you dared to risk yourself. A child who dares to protect his mother like that, what more could I ask for? I didn't even have to suffer giving birth, yet I got a son like this. I am truly blessed." Landon blinked, his gaze brightening. "Really, is that true?" He didn't dare to believe it but hoped I would confirm it. I didn't mind praising him. "Of course it's true," I assured him. "You have patience, you have will. The journey that the Lee family takes 3 days to travel, we did in half a day, yet you endured it without a word of complaint. Coming home, you were glared at by your uncle and aunt, bullied by Rocky, yet you still faced it bravely, showing no fear. Having a son like you, I must have practiced virtue for 10 years in my past life to get this exchange. Being poor in my past life but having money to spend in this life. Counting it all up, it's worth it." Landon blushed and smiled shyly. "But I still lost." "But you dared to fight," I replied. "You were often bullied. The hardest part is daring to resist for the first time. I originally planned to encourage you for 3 days and 3 nights, yet today you did it immediately. You really are a genius. You lost only because you are a decent person, not used to fighting. Rocky is used to fighting, his hands and feet are practiced. But with just a little training, sooner or later you will win. For example, just now when he grabbed your hand and you two were close, hands and feet were hard to use force, but you could have used your knee to strike his stomach." I immediately taught him a few self-defense moves that I learned from short videos in my past life. Back then, I lived alone and was afraid of mishaps, so I learned self-defense. Who knew that before I could meet a bad guy, I met a terrible boss and worked until I died of exhaustion. Oh everyone, my fate was truly tragic. Landon studied very seriously, practicing until late at night before agreeing to sleep, lingering as if he didn't want to stop. I went out and told Butler Lewis to choose a guard skilled in martial arts from our group to start teaching him starting tomorrow. Butler Lewis sighed softly, a complex expression on his face. "Madam is truly so good to the young master," he remarked gently. "It is only natural for a mother to love her child." His lips twitched as if he wanted to add something more, perhaps a question or an observation, but he stopped himself just in time. He hesitated for a moment, then eventually gave a faint, professional smile and silently turned away to handle the arrangements. I knew what he was thinking. After all, the original Grace had previously shown blatant displeasure and disgust when she heard the news of having to bring Landon back. Therefore, Butler Lewis likely felt that my sudden change of heart, flipping my attitude as fast as one flips a pancake, was quite strange and perhaps suspicious. When night fell, I ordered the guards to kick Simon Chen's entire family out of the main house and force them to sleep in the woodshed. The reason was simple. and I had just found out the truth. Landon had been forced to sleep in that drafty, cold shed for the past 4 or 5 years. In the middle of the night, the sounds of scolding and fighting echoed from the yard, drifting into our room. "Get to the other side. You're just a girl. How dare you try to take up space? Roll over there now. Big brother, you actually know how to defend our parents," a sharp voice retorted. "Yet you're an ungrateful brat who only knows how to hide in the room and sleep in peace while we suffer." Mingled with the angry shouting was the muffled, choked sobbing of a fragile little girl, which was quickly suppressed as if she feared further punishment. Landon was also awakened by the noise. He listened for a moment, then whispered to me, "That is Nina, the youngest daughter of Simon and Sandra." He opened his mouth as if to say something else about her, but then stopped, closing his lips tight. I didn't ask or press him, I simply waited for him to speak up on his own. I am not a mind reader, I cannot always guess what he is thinking. If he wants my help, he must learn to speak up and communicate his needs to me. The next morning, Simon and Sandra woke up early, forced by their new circumstances to cook breakfast. Helping them was a small girl. Nina. Her skin was dark from exposure to the sun, her eyes bright but devoid of any childhood innocence, filled only with a deep sadness and numbness. As Sandra ordered the girl to bring the porridge out to us, Butler Lewis leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Madam, I saw them spit in the food." Simon and Sandra panicked when they saw us whispering, immediately denying any wrongdoing before I even accused them. I just smiled, calm and collected. I took a packet of laxatives I had prepared earlier from my sleeve, nonchalantly poured the powder into the pot of rice, stirred it well, and ordered my men to make them eat it. The two of them froze in horror, then immediately struggled against the guards. "What is this? I won't eat it," Simon screamed. "It's just some laxatives," I replied continuously. "It will help cleanse your dark, filthy bellies." I ordered my men to force them to eat every last bit of the tainted food. After eating, they frantically tried to shove their fingers down their throats to vomit it back up, but it was too late. Their stomachs immediately cramped with severe pain, and they scrambled outside in a panic. For the rest of the day, those two did not leave the latrine for a single step. By evening, they were just groaning in the shed, weak and unable to move. At this point, deciding the environment was too toxic, Landon and I moved to live at the neighbor's house next door. I had brought quite a few people this time, most of whom were arranged to stay temporarily in the villagers' homes. I even distributed some silver to the locals, so everyone was happy and provided us with excellent food and service. In truth, I never had any intention of eating the food from Simon's house. I was just waiting to see what other dirty tricks they would pull, so I could retaliate tenfold with my own hands. After dinner, I told Landon to go out and fight Rocky one more time. Seeing his parents in such a miserable state, Rocky had been brooding with anger all day. Hearing my challenge, he charged forward without hesitation. To be honest, this kid had some spirit and a decent build. It was a pity his parents had raised him poorly. His strength wasn't used for good but for bullying the weak. This time, unfortunately, Landon lost again. Seeing their son win the fight, Simon and Sandra suddenly felt miraculously better, their stomach aches momentarily forgotten. They sang praises for their brilliant son while simultaneously cursing Nina for being slow and useless in the background. When Dr. Wayne applied medicine to Landon's wounds, the boy didn't seem discouraged at all. I teased him on purpose, asking, "Oh, you're not sad today about losing?" Landon's eyes were bright, his voice full of confidence. "Today, I hit him 7 times. It's just that he's stronger than me right now, so he won. As long as I eat more and get stronger, I will definitely beat him." Indeed, with Landon's thin, malnourished body, the fact that he could hold his own until now against a well-fed opponent was entirely thanks to his quick wit and iron will. That day, Landon ate a lot at every meal, stuffing himself to build strength. After resting for a bit, he followed the martial arts guard that Butler Lewis had hired. The guard understood my intention. He skipped the basics and taught purely practical combat moves designed for survival. By dusk, Landon went out for a walk to clear his head. When he returned, however, his face was downcast and gloomy. He told me he had just heard someone badmouthing me behind my back. He was so angry he chased them to argue, but those people just ran away, sticking their tongues out to mock him. Landon was very disappointed in his inability to catch them. "It's fine if they insult me," he muttered. "But I don't like them insulting you." Oh my goodness, he really is such a good child. It wasn't in vain that I loved him sincerely. To cheer him up and teach a lesson, I handed Landon a stack of papers with special markings and told him to distribute them to the people in the village. Anyone who had helped him in the past received 3 vouchers. Anyone who treated him kindly got 2. Those who had never bullied him got 1. As for the rest, he could decide who to give them to, but he must absolutely not give any to those who had bullied him. I explained that anyone holding those papers could go to Dr. Wayne for a medical check-up, and all costs would be covered by the Marquis Manor. Landon looked up and whispered, concerned. This will cost a lot of silver. The villagers were poor, most could only grit their teeth and endure illness, saving every penny for survival. Going to a clinic was a last resort for them. I smiled and rubbed his head, reassuring him. It's okay. For you everything is worth it. Landon froze, his eyes turning slightly red at my words. After a while, he lowered his head, his cheeks flushing as he softly called out, Mother. After saying it, he looked up at me, his eyes sparkling, waiting for me to respond. My heart softened like water. I pulled him into my arms and gently patted his back. My good boy, I whispered. The next day, the Chen household became bustling with activity. Dr. Wayne was a kind man. Seeing the villagers bring the papers, he immediately performed check-ups, took pulses, and wrote prescriptions without taking a single cent. There were a few greedy ones who tried to sneak in without a voucher. Dr. Wayne strictly followed the rules: no paper, no free service. After failing a few times to bypass the system, those people left in anger. The remaining people were those who truly had helped or at least never harmed Landon. In my past life, I used to watch TV dramas and loved scenes where good people were rewarded. I hated the trope where good people fell into desperate straits, only for a reward to wander in slowly after we're already covered in wounds. That kind of late gratitude, even if it's a happy ending, is filled with so much sorrow it makes one suffocate. So this time, I wanted to take control of the story. I wanted the good people to receive their rewards in time. I wanted a child who once lived in darkness to understand what love feels like for the first time. Therefore, when I have enough power, I always hope to let good people enjoy their blessings early, rather than waiting until they are exhausted and disappointed to receive a tiny bit of late response. After some time, many people in the village praised me, saying I had a dignified appearance and a kind heart. Those who had spoken ill of me before now showed regret. Of course, they weren't repentant because of a sudden conscience, but rather because they missed out on a chance for profit. On one side, Dr. Wayne continued treating the villagers. On the other side, Landon continued his duels with Rocky. Only this time, Rocky no longer held the advantage. He punched Landon's forehead till it swelled, but Landon also punched him so hard his lip split. Aunt Sandra was so angry her teeth gnashed, looking at Landon with eyes that wished they could kill him. Seeing me look over, she gave a disdainful cold laugh and suddenly kicked Nina. It was the classic, kick the cat effect. Humans always tend to vent their anger on those weaker than themselves. Previously in the Chen household, the weakest was Landon. Now the roles had shifted, and Nina was the one bearing all the rage. That evening, Landon and I sat down to review the day's events. He said, Mother, today some people who used to bully me came over trying to act close, saying sweet things to get those vouchers from me. Should I have given them any? I shook my head. No. He hesitated, then asked, Then what were you thinking in your heart? I was truly curious to know his thoughts. Landon lowered his head, his voice getting smaller. I just didn't want to give them anything. If I gave them to them, I would feel wronged. But I also don't know why. Mother, do you think I'm bad for being like that? In truth, if he had given them the vouchers, he would have been betraying himself, and the child who once was bullied and suffered alone. I looked at him and said seriously, If you had given them anything, I would have been the one angry. Good people must put in action and goodwill to be rewarded. If bad people only need to say a few nice words to get what they want, that is injustice. If you did that, then in the future, the people who truly care for you would feel hurt. There would be no more good people by your side, only those with sweet mouths and poisonous hearts who flatter you when you're doing well. But when you encounter trouble, they will turn their backs and leave. Today you did the right thing. Staying true to your heart makes me truly happy for you. Landon's lips curled slightly with a hint of small pride. He gently pressed his cheek against my hand, nuzzling like a small animal seeking comfort. Mother, many people praised you today. I am very happy. I smiled and rubbed his head. The thorn in his heart seemed to have been pulled out a little more. Perhaps I really was gradually changing his destiny. On the third day, someone brought a fake voucher to ask for a checkup. Dr. Wayne frowned, his voice stern as he refuted them, pointing out the different paper quality and handwriting. The person was both embarrassed and anxious, saying hurriedly, "I can pay for the check-up, can't I? Can't I be seen even if I pay?" Dr. Wayne just shook his head firmly. "I was brought here by the Marquis Manor. I only follow the owner's orders, I dare not treat outsiders at will." The person turned to leave in anger, but I called him back. Landon had told me this man once kicked him for no reason and laughed as if watching a show. He once asked me, is my face just very annoying, very easy to bully? Hearing that memory, my heart ached as if someone had squeezed it tight. Many children who are frequently bullied are like that, appearing weak on the outside, not knowing how to resist, making bad people feel that hitting them is okay. They are not the ones who are wrong, it's the ones who intentionally bully others. I looked straight at the man and said coldly, "You once kicked my son. If you want to check up, let him kick you back 3 times, then we'll talk. If you accept, you get treated, if not, please leave." The man was stunned, frowning and thinking for a long time, seemingly remembering that it actually happened. "It was just a little joke," he mumbled. "Why hold a grudge until now?" I looked at him coldly, not bothering to say a word. In my mind, I thought if I weren't holding back, I would really want to beat him myself. Seeing I was serious, the man must have calculated the pros and cons. Going to the county for a check-up would cost more, and Dr. Wayne's medical skills were far superior to the quacks out there. Finally, he gave a strained laugh. "Fine, kick me then." I turned my face away, too lazy to hear his excuses. I let Landon kick him 3 times. The truth is, I am a bit of a vengeful person. When I was a child, I once went to a general store to buy something. I gave them 10 pennies, but the owner insisted I only gave 5. He called me a thief and kicked me out. When I got home, my father beat me, accusing me of spending all the money on snacks and lying. That grievance stayed with me ever since. Even as an adult, I always thought, if only I had dared to risk it all back then to fight for justice, maybe things would have been different. Since then, I swore I would never let myself suffer such a grievance again. I don't know much about romance, nor do I know how to raise a child, but I remember my childhood grievances very clearly, and I absolutely do not want Landon to go through the same humiliation. Landon kicked him 3 times. The man didn't care, dusting his butt and going for his checkup as if nothing happened. Only Landon stood still, a bit dazed. That's right. People who hurt others often don't remember what they did. When reminded, they call it a joke, or even blame the victim for being petty. Only the victim stays standing in that place, gnawing on the wound, just like I did in my childhood. Growing up, I read many psychology books, learned to forgive, and learned to face it. I once summoned the courage to tell my father that he had misunderstood me that year. The result? He had forgotten it all long ago, and even blamed me for being ungrateful. He only remembered the bad things and not the good things he had done for me. They were clearly 2 different matters, but he intentionally lumped them together to force me to swallow the grievance. After that, I no longer wanted to say anything to him. I just sent news, hiding all the unpleasantness. He will never know what I truly think, and I no longer care. I smiled at Landon. Therefore, the words of many people in this world are actually not important. What's important is what you want. Just do it, don't let yourself have regrets. Landon was extremely happy that day, and because he was so happy, he finally beat Rocky. Rocky ran back crying to find his mother. Aunt Sandra was so angry she broke out in mouth sores. Lately, their lives had been truly miserable. Their house was occupied by me, and they had to serve the crowd of people following me. Every time she saw things in the house being used by me, her face wrinkled with pain, but she didn't dare say a word. She had tried to find relatives to help, but when her maternal family heard she had offended the Marquis Manor, no one dared to come near. They even advised her to be obedient and not to provoke wealthy, powerful people. When Rocky could still beat Landon, at least she had a bit of a superior feeling. Now, even that joy was gone. She was so angry she nearly fainted, spending the whole afternoon scolding everyone. Even looking at Nina was an eyesore to her. At night, she screamed loudly. I sent Butler Lewis over with a warning. If you keep being noisy, I will cut out your tongue. The couple immediately fell silent. Over the next few days, Landon made rapid progress. Every day, he took the initiative to find Rocky for a fight. At first, Rocky tried to counterattack, but later he spent every day trying to hide. But the courtyard was too small, there was nowhere to run. Every day he took a beating. Sandra was worried sick for her son. Finally, one day she couldn't take it anymore. She knelt down in front of me, pleading earnestly. We really did wrong by Landon before. But it's in the past. You've beaten us, you've vented your anger. Now he beats Rocky like this every day. It's like you're taking my life. I gave Butler Lewis a piece of paper. He handed it to her. She held it with a face full of doubt, then gave it to her husband to read. If you have no objections, then put your thumbprint on it. Early the next morning, Simon Chen, who had been hiding for a few days, personally came to see me. He was literate and understood the content, an admission of the abuse and beatings inflicted on Landon, which had to be signed and fingerprinted as evidence. He glared, "You want me to sign a confession? Never. There's nothing left to say. I am not a kind, virtuous person," I told Landon. "If you see Rocky, just beat him. If you see him bullying Nina, beat him harder until he yields." That night, the sound of the couple arguing echoed from the woodshed. Simon didn't want to sign because he still dreamed of relying on the Marquis Manor's influence. His family had been poor for generations, only his elder brother had a successful future. If he missed this chance, he would spend his whole life in poverty, unable to hold his head up. Aunt Sandra scolded him back, saying he couldn't even keep his life, so why think about a future that was just hot air? She feared even their son's life wouldn't be safe. That night, Simon Chen's eyes became dark and terrifying. Butler Lewis reported that he kept circling his hand around his wife's neck as if considering whether to strangle her to death and blame everything on her. But just then, Rocky turned over in his sleep, and Nina also sat up, staring intently at him. He was frightened and pulled his hand back. He was a master of calculation. As long as he could pass his elder brother's hurdle, what did it matter if his wife died? His elder brother would surely find him a new one anyway. In the original book, no one ever discovered how Landon had suffered. Simon's family continued to live shamelessly at the Marquis Manor for years. Landon's father even forced him to be grateful to Simon. In the story, the father was a coarse man, good at fighting battles but terrible at reading people. He didn't realize there was any grudge between his son and his younger brother, assuming his son was just cold-blooded and unfilial. Later, Landon had to plot personally to make Simon lose all his land and break his leg before his hatred was finally settled. But by then, the revenge was taken, the enemy was cowering, yet the feeling was likely not joy, just more choking resentment and emptiness. Fortunately, now everything is still in time. Landon can still become a good person, he doesn't have to become a cruel one. The next day, Rocky led Nina and knelt before me, immediately kowtowing with loud thuds. Rocky cried, "Aunt, I beg you, don't let my father kill my mother." I replied confusedly, "I never told your father to kill your mother. I only told him to sign the confession, and he refused." "When did you see him killing your mother?" Rocky sobbed. "Last night." Father raised his hand and almost strangled mother. He cried until his face was covered in tears, and Nina also sobbed softly beside him, trying not to make a sound as if afraid to disturb me. In that moment, looking at them, I realized those two children were also just two pitiful kids caught in the crossfire. I signaled Butler Lewis to take the children outside, shielding them from the immediate fallout. Then I turned to look at the inner room, my voice cold and unyielding. "Consider yourself lucky. Today, your two children saved your life. But most importantly, it was your daughter, the girl you despise, who sat up and stared at Simon Chen, startling him enough to retract his hand." Hearing this, Aunt Sandra looked as if she had been struck by lightning on a clear day. She was like so many women in this village, or rather, so many women in this society, who devoted their entire lives to their families. She gave her heart and soul her husband, hoping only for a peaceful life. She was selfish, blind, and at times even cruel. But everything she did was for this family. She once hoped to rise up with Simon Chen, dreaming of the day the whole family would change their fate, where even the chickens and dogs would ascend to heaven. But she never expected that in Simon's eyes, she was just a burden, a stumbling block on his path to enjoying wealth and success alone. She gritted her teeth in fury and cursed, screaming at the empty air, "You damn ghost, Simon Chen. Just go die already, and when you die, bury me in the dirt with you." After saying that, she turned and stormed off. That very day, she called her brothers from her maternal family to force Simon to sign the confession. After securing the document, she handed the paper to me, then pushed Nina in front of me. "This child, I'm selling her to you," Sandra said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I know you are a good person. If you treat Landon so well, you certainly won't mistreat her. I'm selling her to you not because I'm greedy for money, but because I'm afraid her father will turn around and come to claim her later." She looked down at the ground. Just one string of coins. Take her away. Nina sobbed uncontrollably, pulling desperately at her mother's sleeve. Mother, don't leave me behind. I will eat less, I will work harder. I didn't come out to help you that day not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid of delaying washing the pot. I didn't dare to come out and watch. The girl cried miserably, her small body shaking with grief. Aunt Sandra's eyes were complex and red-rimmed. She clenched her jaw, her voice choked with unshaded tears. I am doing this for your own good. Following me means no peace. Today, I am doing this because I still remember the good things about you, so I made up my mind. I'm just afraid that one day, I might forget. Speaking up to this point, she choked up, freezing in place. Indeed, she was right. Human nature is complicated. Sandra had just suffered a huge shock and hated Simon right now. Remembering her daughter's obedience and filial piety, she decided to hand Nina over to me, hoping the girl would have a future. But Simon wouldn't give up so easily. Sooner or later, he would coax her into softening her heart. By then, she would forget all the pain of today, forget her daughter's sacrifice. Everything would return to the way it was. Life would go back to the constant scolding and cold neglect. At that moment, Landon tugged gently at my sleeve, his eyes earnest and pleading. In the original book, the person who gave him a little warmth besides the heroine was Nina. It was Landon who changed her diapers and fed her porridge when she was a baby. And when she grew a bit older, she shared her food with him. It was a pity that later, when Landon gained power, Nina had already died. It was said that when she fell ill, her parents didn't even care, yelling at her to be quiet because her crying was noisy. Nina endured silently, not daring to make a sound, and by the next morning, she was stiff and cold in her bed. Later, Landon punished Simon's whole family, then returned to the village to place several bowls of meat on Nina's grave. More meat than the girl had ever eaten in her entire life. Then he met the heroine, Lily Sue. Because Lily somewhat resembled Nina from her childhood, he initially treated her like a little sister. Later, she became the only person who could warm his heart. I took out a heavy bag of silver and drafted a deed of sale for Nina. This was an irrevocable deed. Irrevocable, with no room for regret. Because I couldn't trust Simon Chen and his wife. I feared that in the future, if I raised Nina into a refined young lady, those two would come back preaching morality to claim their daughter. I was also afraid Nina might grow up to be swayed by a few sweet lies, softening her heart to accept them back, making me the laughingstock of the world. I do not allow anyone to humiliate my kindness, so I'd rather be the bad guy once and cut off all ties from the start. With matters in the village settled, I took Landon and Nina to visit the village chief to discuss repaying the village. My punishment of Simon's family was outwardly for revenge on Landon's behalf, but people's hearts change easily. A few years later, the villagers might forget what happened and only remember the madam who beat up the elders, and Landon might labeled as unfilial to his uncle and aunt. Moreover, this is an era bound by etiquette. Even the emperor rules the country with filial piety as the priority. Landon will go very far in the future. I cannot let the gossip of this place become a stain blocking his path. So, I proposed to the village chief that the Marquis Manor would pay to build a small school for the village. The children's tuition would be covered by the manor. There is only one condition, I stated firmly. The ratio of boys and girls must be equal. If a boy studies, a girl must also be allowed to study. The village chief hesitated, not understanding why. In his eyes, only boys reading books had a future, to take exams, become officials, or teachers, or at least go to the city to be accountants. As for girls, even if they studied, they would just get married. Studying was a waste. I didn't intend to argue or persuade him to change his mindset. I haven't even adapted to this society myself. How could I change others? So I chose to paint a pie in the sky for him. My husband is currently a marquis. Who knows, he might be promoted even higher in the future. I said conspiratorially. The manor needs many maids who are literate and understand etiquette. If there is an opportunity, naturally, people from our hometown are the most trustworthy, right? I looked up and pointed at the sky. The village chief's eyes widened, his face brightening, as if he had just imagined a scene where a village girl became a noble consort favored by the emperor, returned home to grant money and exempt taxes for 3 years. So thoroughly, he exclaimed. I will definitely arrange this matter properly. I'm just afraid some people will still object. I replied, Chief, just rest assured. Leave this to me. Whoever dares to stop me, I have ways to handle them. With that, I felt at ease. In this era, the village chief holds great power. From dealing with officials, paying taxes, mobilizing people, repairing roads, to managing funerals, disputes, marriages, and births in the village. Everything must go through him. As long as he handles it well, the money I spent is worth it. Once done, I led the 2 children onto the carriage and slowly headed back. On the way out, a large crowd of villagers came to see us off. Some called me a living bodhisattva, praised Dr. Wayne's medical skills as divine, called Landon a born noble fate, and said Nina had great fortune. The world is always discussing something. Words beneficial to me are good words, words disadvantageous are bad words. So, one can listen, but there's no need to care. I smiled and bid farewell. My gaze swept over the crowd and met the regretful eyes of Simon Chen and his wife. They had heard the news that I was paying to build a school. Only now did they truly feel regret. They must be thinking if they had treated Landon kindly before, perhaps that money would belong to them. But there is no medicine for regret in this world. Things have passed, but the scars remain forever. In the carriage on the way back, Landon sat beside me, looking uneasy. Building a school must cost a lot of money, right? That's right. I nodded. So, from now on we must try to earn a lot of money. Landon nodded seriously. I will save on food and drink. I burst out laughing, taking the chance to teach the first financial lesson of his life. So, how do you plan to save? He listed seriously. I will eat less, chop wood, burn charcoal, pick mushrooms, set traps to catch animals, and I can learn to gather herbs. I will sell them all for money. Nina, who had been silently wiping her tears, also chimed in softly. I will cook, boil water, scrub pots, pull weeds, and spread fertilizer. These 2 children are so capable and know how to share. They are truly 2 adorable little treasures deserving of a beautiful life. I laughed. You 2 are so cute, thinking of me like that. I am very touched. But the servants in the Marquis Manor can do all those tasks. If you fight to do them, you will unintentionally break their rice bowls. They will feel insecure. I also don't want you to save excessively. Children must eat well and sleep well to grow up healthy. After returning to the manor, you must go to school. You won't have time for these odd jobs. For now, your mission is to eat well, sleep enough, and not get sick. That is already helping me. I continued. From now on, every month I will give you pocket money. I will teach you how to spend money, and later, I will teach you how to earn money. We will learn slowly, no need to rush. Good days are waiting ahead. Upon returning to the Marquis Manor, I immediately arranged 4 tasks. First, I had Butler Lewis write a letter to Landon's father, General Thomas Chen, recounting in detail every instance of abuse he suffered at Simon Chen's house. Everything must be told first and fast, so that later no one can frame me. Second, I changed Nina's name to Vivian Chen. Temporarily, she would stay with me, and when she grew a bit older, she would move to the West Wing to live separately. Third, I ordered the head steward to audit all the expense ledgers in the manor. I wanted to know where the Marquis Manor's money was actually going, to cut the excess and fill the shortage. Fourth, helping Landon and Vivian find a school to start their education. The Chen family was titled Marquis due to military merit, but they had no solid power base in the capital. If the children wanted to study, they could only go to private schools run by aristocratic families for elementary learning. Landon was already older, and just starting school now, so he would certainly be scrutinized, perhaps even discriminated against. But for now, there was no better option. In the original book, the author didn't specify how he entered school, but I felt he definitely went through an unhappy period of education. Clearly, he had the aura of a main character, noble background, superior talent, striking appearance. But all those things were just to create a character worthy of the male lead, serving as an obstacle to the romance between the main couple. The author described his suffering in detail, but glossed over his growth process. Happiness was given in drops, while wounds were fatal. If possible, I wanted to give him another chance, a path of true education. I scouted several prestigious schools in the capital, and finally set my sights on one place, the clan school of the Chen family, an aristocratic clan that shared the same surname. I sent a visiting card first, and on the appointed day, I personally took Landon and Vivian to visit. The 2 children were dressed neatly, looking lovely and obedient, standing next to me. Clearly curious, they tried not to look around, polite and understanding, making one's heart melt. I waited for about half a cup of tea before being received by the young Madame Chen, the eldest daughter-in-law of the clan. She had a face round like the moon, almond eyes, peach cheeks, and pink lips, looking dignified and benevolent. She smiled very politely, saying her mother-in-law was ill, so she was sent to receive guests in her stead. Her words were skillful and courteous, flawless. Seeing the two children, she praised them with a few sentences, but then she immediately smiled regretfully. The two children are truly well behaved, but unfortunately, our clan school is already full. There is no room to accept any more. Before I could even open my mouth, she had blocked my retreat. The refusal was too gentle, making it impossible to blame her. I understand, I replied softly. Although sharing the surname Chen, they were a centuries-old aristocratic family. Naturally, they looked down on the rustic, soldier background Landon's father. They didn't want their descendants to study with a lower class, afraid of catching bad habits. I didn't push it. I just exchanged a few polite pleasantries, left the gifts, and absolutely didn't mention schooling again. I simply said that since we shared the surname Chen, it could be considered fate. Today was just a junior coming to pay respects. So if we met in the future, it wouldn't be awkward or rude. Leaving the Chen mansion, sitting in the carriage, Vivian was still naive. Feeling that she had eaten good snacks today, she was visibly happy. But Landon had understood early on, his eyes were silent and full of doubt. He knew he was being looked down upon again. Even though he wore brocade robes today, he was still not accepted. He didn't understand why adults were so complicated. The rich looked down on the poor, officials looked down on merchants, and old aristocratic families looked down on the newly rich. Everyone carried various overlapping, complex identities. Such things, he would gradually understand as he grew up. But right now, I only wanted to teach him one single thing. He must learn to accept failure, because it is a normal part of life. I pinched Landon's cheek and smiled reassuringly. Are you discouraged already? The story has just begun. When humans are small, just one fall makes them cry boo-hoo, thinking the sky is falling. But when they are a bit older, looking back, they see how silly and cute they were back then. Failing an exam at 15 feels like your life is over. But looking back at 25, you realize it wasn't a big deal. Being scolded by a boss at 25 feels like you're about to be fired, but by 35, you've changed so many jobs, maybe even fired a few terrible bosses yourself. As long as you live long enough, you will realize that life actually allows you to make more mistakes than you ever thought. So, being rejected by the Chen family is nothing huge. As long as you get rejected enough times, one more rejection is just like a light drizzle in early spring. Light and weightless, not worth worrying about. I continued to take the two children to apply to a few other places, but we were rejected by all of them. On the way back, Vivian wasn't smiling anymore. She seemed to understand what it felt like to be disliked. Landon's face was sullen, looking out the window with worry. As for me, this didn't bother me at all. Remembering back to the days I sent resumes everywhere without a single callback. Finally, I had to sign with a terrible boss just to stabilize early. Salary of 3,000 but forced to do the work of 30,000. I nearly risked my life for that job. So now I think, the more I get rejected, the more I have to keep a steady mind. Who knows, maybe this is heaven saving me from misery. If I could build a school in the village, why couldn't I build one in the Marquis Manor? I didn't need the two kids to study at a prestigious school. I needed them to truly learn good principles. Now is the time their worldview is forming. Studying close to me so I can teach them carefully is better than entrusting them to strangers. Wait until Landon truly needs a famous master. By then, he will have the ability to earn it himself. So, I chose a quiet courtyard in the Marquis Manor, renovated it into a schoolroom, and invited a scholar named Mr. Charles to be the teacher. Initially, hearing Shen Manor, Mr. Charles thought he was invited to teach for the prestigious Chen clan and was very excited. When he found out it was the Chen Manor of a military general with a common background, his face visibly dropped. But then, witnessing Landon learn just once, remembering everything after one look, he immediately burned with enthusiasm. Even though I failed the exams for 10 years, my disciple will definitely win the triple firsts in a row, he declared. Vivian and I also studied together. I practiced writing traditional characters and holding the brush pen. Vivian started with elementary learning. In the afternoon, the children learned a few more subjects like basic martial arts and home economics. On the very first day of school, Vivian burst into tears. Why does my name have so many strokes, while brother's name is so easy to write? Why? The girl cried while wiping her tears, but still struggled to continue writing each crooked stroke. Landon and I laughed out loud. Landon even took the initiative to teach his sister how to write, rubbing her head to encourage her. Take your K. Just starting to write is already progress. Well said. As long as you start, it's never too late. Days passed, one after another. Every day at dinner, I asked the two children, tell me one happy thing and one unhappy thing from today. At first, both were shy and didn't want to talk much. But very quickly after, they started asking me, did mother have anything happy today? Any sad things? We shared together, untangled problems for each other, listened to feelings, and learned how to handle issues. Thanks to that, they broadened their understanding, and I understood my children better. This gradually became a daily habit. At the beginning of every month, I gave each of them one string of coins, instructing them to save half, and the rest they could spend on whatever they liked. If they didn't spend it, they could accumulate it to buy something big. I even made each of them a savings book to record the money I held for them, plus an expense ledger to record every item they spent money on. I also dedicated 3 days each month to take them around the market. The two children were absolutely amazed. They discovered that buying directly from the production site was significantly cheaper. They felt immense regret for having previously bought items at such high prices from the street vendors. Butler Lewis, seeing this, could not understand my methods. He felt that such matters were the business of servants. In his eyes, children of a wealthy house should study the 4 arts: zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, along with poetry and noble etiquette. Butler Lewis was a very good man. Recently, to make the Marquis' Manor appear more high class, he had taken the initiative to befriend stewards from other grand manors. He was diligently learning how they managed their internal affairs and the strict rules of prestigious families. He was very hardworking and had a strong desire to improve. I knew he was doing this purely out of the goodness of his heart. He worried that if Landon and Vivian only learned these trivial, common things, they would be looked down upon by others in the future. But what I desired was not to turn the two children into spoiled young masters or fragile noble ladies. I wanted them to be real people, standing firm on their own feet, having a strong will, understanding the world, and living with kindness and dignity. I didn't want them to be like the characters in the book, who only knew how to immerse themselves in obsessive romance, living solely by their emotions without any regard for reality. I remember once reading a book about a prince who only realized, after leaving the imperial palace, that buns should be eaten while they were still hot. This was because throughout his years in the palace, the buns served to him had always gone cold. There was also an emperor who, during his reign, believed the price of rice was several silver taels per pound, because that was the price reported to him by the Internal Affairs Office. It was only when his dynasty collapsed and he became a commoner that he realized with shock that he had been deceived for so many years. If one does not understand the cost of living, how can they understand the suffering of the people? History often mocks Emperor Sima Zhong for his famous questions. If the people have no rice to eat, why don't they eat meat? But in his eyes, meat was something every household had, because no one had ever taught him the meaning of the people's hardship. No one taught him to understand the people, yet they expected him to love them. Isn't that absurd? I told Butler Lewis, humans cannot forget their roots. We were born from the dust, so we must understand the affairs of everyday life. In the future, whether they become officials or make their own way in the world, at least they won't be easily deceived. Financial matters in this house must be clear and transparent. Hearing this, Butler Lewis looked as if a heavy burden had been lifted, like a string that had been pulled tight for too long and was finally loosened. Madam is absolutely right. Lately, being influenced by others, I had forgotten where our Marquis' Manor came from. No matter how much I tried to imitate the rules of those high-born families, I could never replicate their true demeanor. Why force ourselves so much? He spoke the truth. We are mortals living comfortably and happily without shame in our hearts is enough. In the blink of an eye, winter passed and spring arrived. Landon's father, who had changed his name from Tom Chen to General Thomas, had returned. After entering the palace to pay respects to the emperor, he galloped back to the manor like a bolt of lightning. As soon as he reached the gate, Butler Lewis hurriedly sent someone to report the news to me. General Thomas had returned with a woman by his side, and she was holding his arm quite intimately. Hearing this, Landon's face turned gloomy. This year he was 10 years old, thanks to eating well and sleeping enough. He was nearly as tall as me. As soon as he heard his father had brought another woman home, he was instantly displeased. Since childhood, Landon had developed a specific mindset: whoever saved him, he would trust and protect with all his heart. While this was touching and made me feel like his true family, it was also dangerous. If he trusted the wrong person, he would fall straight into a pit of fire with no way out. Vivian leaned into my arms and whispered, "Mother, don't be afraid." I gently pinched her soft, adorable cheeks. She was so sweet my heart nearly melted. "Let's go. We'll meet your father together." In the original book, I didn't clearly remember a scene where the Marquis brought a woman home. After all, he was just a minor character used as a background to explain Landon's cruelty, so the descriptions were sparse. But after a year of living in this era, I had my own calculations. In this meeting, I just wanted to see for myself what kind of man Thomas was, so I could know how to deal with him. The status of a Marquis's wife was indeed very useful in saving me from a lot of trouble, especially while he was away at war. No one in the capital dared to touch me. If possible, I still wanted to continue collaborating with him, but this meeting was not pleasant at all. As soon as he saw me, General Thomas immediately scolded me coldly. "I risked my life fighting on the borders to secure this legacy for the manor, yet you are at home doing such shameful things. Do you even have any respect for me?" After saying that, he threw a stack of papers down in front of me. I looked down at the papers Thomas had just tossed. "Huge sale today, spend 200 get 30 off. Flower festival special for beauties. Fresh goods 30% off. Year end point redemption for free gifts." They were all advertising flyers I had personally designed for my shops. From membership point systems to holiday promotions, I had implemented every form of marketing to attract customers bit by bit. Initially, many people mocked me, saying I was degrading the status of a Marquis's wife by acting like a petty merchant. Yet now, many people are copying my business model. I alone had turned the tide of commerce in the capital, making the markets bustle with activity while my purse grew heavier by the day. I felt perfectly fine, but Thomas clearly did not. He didn't ask a single question or try to understand the situation. He just rushed to condemn me, reaching a verdict like he was sentencing a criminal. That attitude made me lose all desire to collaborate. I spoke calmly. "In that case, let us get a divorce." As soon as these words left my mouth, Thomas froze. The woman standing behind him also stared in shock. Landon was a bit confused at first, but then quickly regained his composure. He glanced at his father with a cold look. "I will go with Mother." Vivian blinked her big, innocent eyes and whispered, "Mother, when are we leaving?" I rubbed the two children's heads and said softly, "We'll pack our things now. We will stay at the suburban villa for a while. It just so happens that Mother has invited a teacher skilled in identifying herbs. You two can learn from him first, and after that, I will move our school there entirely." Butler Lewis looked at me, then at Thomas, and finally said softly, "Madam, I also wish to go with you. I am sure you will still need someone to manage the house." "Madam, we want to go too. Please don't leave us behind." A crowd of maids and servants spoke up hurriedly, afraid I wouldn't take them. Thomas finally couldn't take it anymore and roared, "Do you all still consider me the Marquis?" "Of course they don't," I replied coolly. "I already returned their deeds of sale to them long ago as a reward. They are now free people. They have the right to go wherever they wish. The fact that they are willing to follow me is because they trust me and like me, but I do not want to cause them danger because of myself." Thomas was a general currently favored by the court. Provoking him could bring disaster. So I said, "Fine, let's talk privately." General Thomas huffed coldly, gave me a look of deep contempt, and strode inside. That woman still followed behind him, walking shoulder to shoulder quite intimately, without any sense of propriety or avoidance. I didn't want the conversation to be ruined, so I spoke up to block her. "Young lady, are you sure you want to stay here and witness me argue with the Marquis? Once I leave, only you will be left. Once the Marquis remembers the sight of himself losing his temper and losing face in front of you, your days in the manor might be very hard to live." The woman seemed to wake up, stopping abruptly and forcing a smile. "Thomas, I will wait for you here," she said in a voice as soft and gentle as water. Thomas's face reddened slightly, appearing to enjoy her tone, but he quickly gave me a sharp look, clearly still holding a grudge over my comment about him looking ugly when angry. I was speechless. I couldn't believe I transmigrated into this world and drew the "General brings a mistress home" script. Fortunately, I didn't want to play the part. Thomas and I sat down to talk in a small pavilion. I chose not to sit in a room. Enclosed spaces make it hard to breathe, whereas an open place like this is easier for a conversation. Thomas looked around. Initially he frowned, but then his expression gradually softened. He realized the manor had changed a lot. When it was first bestowed, the place was practically in ruins. With the initial resources of the manor, they could only barely renovate a few parts, but now, I had spent my own money to redesign everything, hiring designers to plan and renovate from the inside out. Originally, I thought simply since I was living here, regardless of how long, I should live decently and comfortably. More importantly, I let the two children participate in everything, from choosing drawings and designs, to calculating material costs, hiring craftsmen, and supervising the work. The two children followed me throughout the process, learning as they worked. They gradually learned the process of fixing a house, how to calculate expenses, mastered the prices of materials, and even learned how to bargain as well as any adult. Their lives had improved significantly because of that. That was the kind of practical knowledge that books could not teach. To me, it was very valuable. Thomas had likely just received a reward from the emperor, so he was still overflowing with arrogance. His voice was cold, carrying an "I have seen through you" attitude. "Don't throw a tantrum with me anymore," he sneered. "In the past, you were the one who begged to be my second wife. Now that I have achieved success, why would you be willing to let go? But rest assured, I will not demote you to a concubine, so you won't lose face. However, from now on, you are not allowed to do those things anymore. All shops and industries must be handed over to a steward to manage. You just need to stay obediently in the manor, act as a settled madam, and not show your face outside. As for the young lady I brought back, her name is Caroline Gu, the daughter of a soldier under my command. I will take her as a noble concubine. You arrange things to bring her into the manor." Every word was a command. I wasn't sure what the relationship was between him and the original Grace, nor did I know if they had ever shared a bed. I didn't have the original owner's memories, but that didn't matter anymore. I just spoke up calmly. "Marquis, before we discuss those things, would you like to hear about Landon first?" Thomas said coldly. "You explained it clearly in your letter. It was indeed my brother's fault, but family matters should not be known by outsiders. You made such a scene that he has no face left in our hometown, and I have lost the dignity to return. You did this wrong, you should have handled it quietly, but you intentionally made it big for people to gossip about. You come from a poor background and don't understand the rules of conduct. In the future, for matters like this, let Caroline teach you." He looked at me from head to toe, his eyes full of contempt, not only shifting all the blame onto me, but also intending to discipline me, turning me into a wife who only knows how to nod and follow orders without a shred of self-respect. I thought to myself, why didn't the Landon from the original book just beat this father of his to death? I didn't bother to argue. I just said, "If that's the case, I have nothing more to say to the Marquis. Let us divorce. I will not keep the title of Marquis's wife to embarrass you." I called a maid to bring brush and ink and immediately wrote a divorce letter. This letter had been drafted for me by Mr. Charles. Although I had learned to write, classical prose was still a great challenge. I had memorized it for a situation just like today. Charles thought he had misheard me at the time. After confirming, he could only look at me with eyes of admiration. As a scholar, he respected those who dared to live by their ideals and didn't crave wealth and power. But honestly, I wasn't being noble, I just wanted to live comfortably. Having transmigrated into the story, I already knew the Chen family wasn't a good place. Although I didn't want to judge too early, after meeting him today, I was truly disappointed. I once thought Thomas was a great general who stood tall between heaven and earth, just someone who didn't understand backyard affairs. But now I see it, he is stubborn, self-satisfied, arrogant, and narrow-minded. I even suspected that his success as a general and a marquis was simply because he was the father of the male supporting character, Landon. The supporting character must have a high enough background to face the male lead. But it couldn't be too good, hence a father who was once a soldier and rose through merit, like Thomas. In truth, he was just a plot device. I finished writing, signed my name, and pushed the paper in front of him. Thomas's face was cold, his eyebrows furrowed. "You know how to write." "Ah, studying with the Manor's teacher lately." "Do you really want a divorce? You entered the Manor empty-handed. If you leave, you will have nothing left. The Marquis only needs to sign. As for the rest, I have my own plans." He huffed coldly, holding the brush as if to sign, but then abruptly threw the brush on the table. I was almost tricked. I have just returned after winning a battle. If I divorce immediately, The other officials will certainly submit petitions accusing me of being heartless and ungrateful. Who instigated you to do this? Wanting to push me into a position of being immoral. I was speechless. Well, he has some brains, but he was overthinking it. I will leave this divorce letter for the Marquis. Sign it when you wish. I will leave the ledgers and the steward for the Marquis to check easily. I am just taking the 2 children to stay at the suburban villa for a while, so I won't disturb you anymore. Which suburban villa? He demanded. Could it be that you secretly accepted bribes and dared to hide private wealth? He stared at me in anger. It's from my dowry. Liar, you had nothing in your hands when you entered the manor. I did. I corrected him. However, it was only a silver hairpin, not worth much money. But it was mine. If you wish to check, the Marquis can ask Butler Lewis instead of being so suspicious. That hairpin was only worth 1 silver towel, but from that, I step by step let money make more money. Initially, I sold a few cooking recipes, then I started making soap, perfume, and household products. Next was distilling strong liquor, every item brought in a massive profit. I recorded every expense in the Marquis Manor clearly, because I had prepared for this day long ago. However, the cost of raising Landon and Vivian was taken from the Manor's books. He provided the money, I provided the effort, calculating it fairly, we raised the children together. I packed my bags, and in the afternoon, I led the 2 children out of the manor. Landon didn't have a shred of attachment to his biological father. That made Thomas very angry. He believed I'd taught the boy poorly. He coldly ordered Landon to stay, but Landon only gave him a cold glance and said firmly, "No, where mother is, I am." Vivian hugged her brother tightly, her small face full of defensiveness as she stared at Thomas. I opened the carriage door, grabbed the horsewhip, and stepped down, my voice as cold as ice. If the Marquis wants to keep Landon, that's fine. As long as you can endure 128 whip marks. No need for words. Endure them, and I will let him stay. On what grounds? He shouted. On the grounds that Landon once took exactly 128 whip marks at his uncle's hand, and his own father thinks that was nothing. I retorted sharply. If you haven't suffered someone else's pain, don't lecture them. If the Marquis can truly endure those marks without a single word of blame toward me, then from now on, I will listen to whatever you say. To put it bluntly, yes, whatever you say is right, but I'm not listening. Thomas stepped forward, intending to pull his son's shirt to check. He saw the whip marks still etched on Landon's back. Even though they had been treated, one could still clearly count every faint white scar, undeniable evidence. He stood frozen like a stone. Landon said nothing, quietly pulling his shirt back and crawling into the carriage. I pushed Thomas aside and got in. Vivian quickly closed the curtain and urged hurriedly, "Mother, go fast. Let's go quickly." The driver shouted, the whip cracked, and the sound of horse hooves on the blue stone road echoed clearly and briskly. Inside the carriage, Landon lay on his side without a word. I reached out to touch his face. The moment I did, I found it drenched in tears. He choked back a sob and whispered, "Back then, Father sent me a kite. Later, Rocky snatched it away. I always thought I would wait for Father to come back and help me get it back. But then his father not only didn't help, but I thought being beaten was no big deal." It truly was heartbreaking. Not long after leaving the city, a rider galloped past our carriage. It was Thomas. He didn't stop but turned his horse toward their hometown. The next morning, Butler Lewis sent a servant to report Thomas had returned to the village and beaten Simon Chen. Landon heard this, pretending not to care, but clearly, his mood had improved significantly. That afternoon, during the lesson on identifying herbs, he answered every correctly and with great insight. Mr. Charles was so astonished that he almost wanted to accept him as a disciple. However, remembering his own humble status as a mere medicine gatherer, he dared not climb so high and could only teach him with all his heart. We stayed at the suburban villa for more than a month. Summer arrived, making the place cool and pleasant, so I decided to stay until autumn. But by the end of summer, Thomas sent someone to call for me. He wanted to take Caroline Gu as a concubine and demanded that I, as the mistress, handle the wedding arrangements. I was speechless. I never expected ending this marriage to be so difficult. In modern times, divorce is hard enough. In ancient times, a woman wanting a divorce is akin to being skinned alive. I began calculating the assets I had on hand to prepare for a safe escape. Landon asked me, "Mother, is Father truly not good?" I remained silent. To be honest, to many young women, General Thomas was still considered a good husband. A hero, powerful, wealthy, and a solid support. That was why, during this time, there was no shortage of gossip in the capital. The Marchioness is so lucky, she married a man like the Marquis when she was poor. Now that she enjoys glory, she demands a divorce. Isn't that too excessive? Her husband is only taking a concubine, not casting her aside. What is she angry about? But what I needed was never a marriage. I thought that if Thomas were someone easy to cooperate with, I could stay and treat him as a partner for mutual benefit. But when I saw that he intended to be my father, trying to decide everything for me, I completely lost interest. Explaining this to the two children was difficult, so I said gently, regardless of how I am with your father, I will forever be your mother. After the divorce you will have 2 homes. Where you want to stay is up to you to choose. Landon nodded. I understand. Mother, just do what you want. Don't worry about me and sister. Early the next morning, the steward ran over in a panic to report, young Master Chen rode a horse back to the city. He went very hurriedly and ordered us not to tell Madame. The steward was worried, so he sent a servant to chase after him while running to tell me. I felt something was wrong and hurriedly chased after him. By the time I arrived at the Marquis' manor, breathless, the scene before me was a standoff between the Chen father and son. They looked at each other like mortal enemies, eyes tense, faces heavy. Landon gripped a knife tightly in his hand, the tip pointed at his own chest, forcing Thomas to sign the divorce letter. Thomas was red with fury, looking no different from a boiled shrimp. He shouted loudly, "Do you still have any shame? The sky is about to fall. Is there any son who forces his father to write a divorce letter like this? Put the knife down immediately." Landon gritted his teeth. "You are not worthy of my mother. If you sign the divorce letter today, I will still acknowledge you as my father. If not, from now on, I will only acknowledge my mother. You unfilial beast." Thomas roared. "Did Flora teach you to be like this? You learned quite a bit of her vulgar, marketplace habits. I truly regret bringing her into this house years ago." Landon roared back, "My mother is Grace. She is a peerless beauty. Her smile or frown can move people's hearts. Years ago, it was mother who saved me. If not for her, what you see now would likely be just a corpse. What right do you have to judge my mother?" These words were like an arrow piercing straight into Thomas's heart, making him so angry his body swayed. He collapsed onto a chair, knocking over the chessboard, sending pieces scattering all over the floor. Landon was, after all, still young and soft-hearted. He hesitated, wondering if his words just now had been too hurtful. Thomas seized that moment. He flicked his wrist, shooting out 2 chess pieces. One knocked the knife away, and the other struck Landon's arm. He clutched his arm in pain, retreating a few steps, feeling both angry and hurt. Thomas said coldly, "You dare to threaten this general? On the battlefield, even if I killed you 10 times, no one would dare say a word." Then he turned to look at me. "Today, father and son are killing each other. Are you satisfied?" I let out a sigh of relief, hurriedly stepping to Landon's side. I rolled up his sleeve to check the wound. Seeing that his arm was only bruised and no bones or tendons were damaged, my mood calmed down somewhat. I silently flicked his forehead lightly, then pulled him behind me, looking towards Thomas. "Of course I am satisfied. My son is loyal and righteous, bravely protecting his mother. Even knowing the Marquis has high power and heavy authority, he still dared to stand up courageously for me. A child with such a resolute character, I couldn't love him enough." I paused, then added sharply, "Marquis, are you not satisfied? If he is unfilial, it is because you were wrong. If you had agreed to the divorce earlier, would today's events have happened?" Thomas went nearly mad, slamming the table and roaring. "Years ago, when I was just a minor officer, you cried and begged to follow me. Now that I am a Marquis, you demand a divorce. Even if there is a divorce, I should be the one writing the letter of repudiation." My eyes darkened. "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. In that case, the Marquis and I have nothing left to say." Thomas was so angry he paced back and forth in the room. "Tell me, why didn't you speak to me? We both come from humble backgrounds. Do you despise me too? Outside, I am looked down upon by the world. Returning home, I am made difficult by you. I think you are just too idle. Stay here and reflect properly." With that, he locked Landon and me in the ancestral hall. Ironically, the Chen family was poor. They didn't really have an ancestral hall. This hall was bestowed by the emperor, and I was the one who paid to renovate it. I opened a drawer under the altar table, pulled out a ruler, and said coldly, "Put out your hand." Landon panicked, his eyes red, but he obediently lowered his head and extended his hand. I struck the back of his hand once. "Do you know where you went wrong today? I shouldn't have ridden alone to find father. Wrong answer. Say it again. I struck him once more. I shouldn't have been unfilial to father. Still wrong. I tapped his wooden head. Landon was confused. Perhaps he had an answer in his heart but wasn't sure, so he looked up at me with hesitating eyes. I put the ruler down, grabbed his shoulders with both hands, and looked straight into his eyes seriously, not letting him look away. Today you did two things wrong, but what makes me angry is that you used your own life to threaten your father. I only taught you self-respect. I never taught you to debase yourself. Do you think one human life can be exchanged for justice in this world? Luckily you didn't succeed today. If in the future you encounter things that don't go your way, will you use your life to test others' hearts again? Landon, this matter disappoints me greatly. In the original book, he intentionally plotted to put himself and the male lead in danger together, wanting to see who the heroine would choose. The result? The heroine accidentally met the male lead first. Completely unaware that Landon was also in trouble, he refused to speak up, thinking he had been abandoned, and began to turn dark, hating the male lead and imprisoning the heroine, acting as if the whole world had wronged him. I had to force him to fix this bad habit. At this moment, Landon was teary-eyed, choking out, "Mother, I just wanted to help you." I immediately told him the second thing I wanted to teach. You cannot arbitrarily make decisions for me. You cannot carry my destiny. I am an adult. I am the protagonist of this story. I will solve my own problems. I have more ways than you can imagine. If I need your help, I will actively seek you out, not wait for you to do everything for me. You met me, a good person. So when you decide for me, I thank you. But if you meet a bad person and risk your life to help them, when there is a benefit, it has nothing to do with you. But if something bad happens, they not only won't be grateful, but will turn around and blame you for acting on your own. Can you bear that consequence? I continued, my voice firm but gentle. The only thing you need to do is live your own life well, master your own destiny, and accumulate a lot of capital to bargain with life. Don't let yourself be empty-handed, so that when trouble comes, you only know how to bet your life. You used your life to force your father to sign the divorce letter because, other than your life, you had nothing. But before sitting at a gambling table, the most needed thing is the cards in your hand. The more, the better. And keeping a trump card. If you have nothing, don't get on the table. Arbitrarily entering a gamble when empty-handed. That is the mentality of a gambler who only relies on luck. And how can you win like that? I asked Landon. He nodded seriously. I know I was wrong. Then go stand in the corner. Repeat what I just said 50 times, until it is engraved in your heart. Landon obediently went to face the wall to reflect. I pulled a large table out, turned it into a bed, and dragged 2 sets of blankets from the cabinet underneath. Then I took out several jars of snacks, pine nuts, melon seeds, eating while thinking. I hadn't eaten since morning, so I was truly hungry. Landon heard the noise and turned to look at me, his eyes filled with disbelief. Finished reciting. If you're done, come here and eat. I patted the cushion, spitting out a melon seed shell as I spoke. Landon was stunned. Mother, can we do this? I could also choose to kneel and honestly admit my mistake. I replied nonchalantly. Landon fell silent, then quickly walked over, sat on the cushion, and happily started munching on melon seeds and pine nuts. His mood improved significantly. Previously, Butler Lewis had proposed renovating the ancestral hall. At the time I planned to refuse, but after thinking about it, I agreed. Because in romance novels, the ancestral hall is a frequently appearing location. With Landon's personality, he was bound to be locked in the ancestral hall at least once, and very likely I would be dragged into it too. So, I decisively renovated this place into a spare bedroom, bed, blankets, snacks, everything included. I just didn't expect I would actually be locked in here. Sigh. I had just given Landon a lesson in ideology and saw that he had truly absorbed it. I was also getting tired of the snacks, so I opened a secret door. Outside was the bamboo forest behind the ancestral hall, quiet and discreet. From here, one could go anywhere in the Marquis' Manor without being detected. Landon was stunned. Mother, why is there a door here? I'll teach you one more principle. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. Whatever you do, plan a retreat. Do not let yourself fall into a passive position. Today, you stay here and reflect. I'm going back to my room to sleep. Wait for my news. Within 3 days. Your father will have to beg me to divorce. I pushed the bookshelf back to its place, closed the door, leaving Landon alone in the ancestral hall, and leisurely returned to my bedroom. It was September, and it was starting to get chilly. I slept very well. When I woke up, I heard noise coming the front courtyard. I knew the moment I was waiting for had arrived. I took the roundabout way to the ancestral hall and heard Thomas continuing his confrontation with Landon right outside the door. The only difference was that this time, the tables had turned. Thomas wanted to enter the ancestral hall to release me, while Landon resolutely locked the door, refusing to let him step inside. You want to invite my mother out? Dream on. When you locked her in here, why didn't you think about how you were wrong? Now that you need help, you lower yourself to beg. No way, Landon. Open the door. Thomas was trembling with rage. Not opening. Thomas tilted his head back, eyes bulging. Knowing he couldn't out-argue his son, he turned to call me. Flora. Cough. Grace. Princess Margaret has sent someone here. She says you agreed to give the princess a medicinal prescription or something. Come out and resolve this quickly. I opened the secret door, entered the ancestral hall from the back and replied coldly, Marquis, please go back. Pass a message to the princess. Tell her my body is unwell. I'm afraid that prescription must be cancelled. I hope the princess will forgive me. Thomas panicked, pacing around anxiously. He had only been a Marquis for a year or two, and spent most of his time on the battlefield, so he had few connections in the capital. He had been suppressed quite a bit by the nobility. In his heart, he was afraid of offending powerful people, especially Princess Margaret. He shouted angrily, Grace, being capricious must have limits. Is this the time for you to throw a tantrum? Come out here. I said indifferently. If not, the Marquis can just order people to break the door down. Oh, but a reminder, behind the door are the ancestral tablets of the Chen family. If you break the door, be careful not to crush the tablets. The ancestors might rise from their graves in the middle of the night to blame you. Thomas roared in fury. Race. Indeed, the ancient books were right. Women and small men are hard to raise. Don't think I'm afraid. I will go refuse Princess Margaret right now. I calmly continued. Great. While you're at it, help me refuse the wife of the Marquis of Bayonne, the young madam of the Chen family, the wife of Duke Anne, the wife of Count Chengen. I recited 6 or 7 names in one breath. Thomas went stiff, standing there like a statue. Landon peeked through the crack in the door and whispered, Seems like father's sky is about to fall. That's right, his sky has truly fallen. The people I just mentioned included royal relatives, his direct superiors, his colleagues, and prominent aristocratic families. Regardless of who it was, he dared not offend any of them. He had been titled noble not long ago, his relationships in the capital were shaky, and he fundamentally didn't know how to handle these kinds of political and social troubles. From his perspective, I was exploiting the gap in knowledge to bully him. I turned to Landon and taught him, Son, today mother wants to teach you a lesson, make many friends, and few enemies. This is the saying of a great man, you should remember it well. When doing business, unless you are truly driven to a dead end, do not choose direct confrontation. Knowing how to leverage others' strength, knowing how to protect yourself, that is wisdom. If we can cooperate for mutual benefit, why drive each other death? Marquis, do you find my words correct? Thomas didn't say a word. I only saw him silently slide a divorce letter through the crack in the door. It had his signature. I opened the door. Meeting his face, ashen like dead ashes, he parted his lips as if to say something, but finally only huffed once, turning his head to leave in grievance. After that, I went to the front hall, handed several blueprints to Princess Margaret and saw her off, whispering a thank you. She said nonchalantly, Today, this princess came originally thinking to help you save face and stop General Chen from taking a concubine. I didn't expect it was to help you divorce. Grace, you dare to even use me. You have big guts. I just smiled gently. Princess, Your Highness, I present 3 additional blueprints. The first 2 are ways to make money, but the third one is the most important. The paper I gave to Princess Margaret was a map identifying the location of a coal mine. My hometown was a small town without many good jobs. There was only a coal mine, which everyone considered the ideal workplace. As a child, I used to follow my parents to the mining area to visit relatives, admiring the mining kids from afar, and had looked at the coal mining area from a distance. After transmigrating into the story, I tried my best to hold more cards in my hand. Besides teaching my children and doing business, I also sought ways to utilize the resources available in this book. Based on place names that resembled real ones, towns, forests, villages. Combined with geography knowledge I learned and sending people to scout, I finally confirmed the location of this coal mine. This was a powerful trump card in my hand. And now, to exchange for the divorce, I was forced to use it. But considering everything, it was worth it. Princess Margaret took the map and said calmly, "This princess owes you a favor. After your divorce, I will shield you somewhat. In the future, if there are similar bargains, remember to find me. I like cooperating with people who know how to calculate for themselves." Then she got into her carriage and left. I breathed a sigh of relief, then sent return gifts to the madams I had asked for help. After arranging everything properly, I drank a large gulp of water, feeling that finally, I could let out a long breath. Suddenly, a hoarse voice spoke from behind. It was Thomas. "Only today do I know that you handle things so cleanly and decisively. Since you had prepared a retreat long ago, why didn't you speak directly to me? You only needed to analyze the pros and cons clearly. I might not have necessarily refused to let go. Why did you have to make things so loud and messy like this?" I replied in a calm voice. "Then let me ask you back, when talking to Landon, did the Marquis feel it was easy?" Thomas was choked for words, his face looking as if I had hit the mark. I continued calmly, my voice steady despite the tension. "Talking to the Marquis is just as exhausting for me. The Marquis has his own way of thinking. I cannot change it, nor do I want to. Today's events are the result of seeds you planted long ago. You should learn to accept the consequences of your own actions." Thomas fell silent. He placed the signed divorce letter, which had already been filed with the Yeoman, onto the table, then turned to leave. After taking a few steps, he turned back, his face full of confusion. "I still don't understand why you insisted on divorcing me," he admitted, his brow furrowed. "Is it really just because I took a concubine?" Looking at him like that, it was clear he truly couldn't comprehend the reason. Out of respect for him being Landon's biological father, I still had to discuss future visitation rights with him anyway. So, I didn't mind explaining it to him clearly one last time. "Does the Marquis want to have a serious conversation with me?" I asked. He nodded. "Then I have one condition," I stated firmly. "When speaking with me, do not use a questioning tone. If you can do that, I will speak. Today, many things happened and I am feeling emotional, so I am willing to confide. After today, I'm afraid I won't have the interest to say anything more. I suspect the Marquis feels the same." Thomas agreed immediately. The maids quickly cleared the table, poured tea, and withdrew. Clouds drifted lazily in the sky, and light steam rose from the tea table. Emotions felt like a small boat bobbing on the water, leisurely yet hiding potential danger. I took a sip of tea and asked, "Marquis, since you already have a wife, why must you take a concubine?" Thomas frowned. "Sure enough, you are still holding a grudge about this. But in this capital, which noble household doesn't do this? Why can't I?" I put the teacup down and immediately stood up to leave. Thomas panicked and stopped me. "I was wrong. Give me another chance. I haven't corrected my old habits yet." I looked straight into his eyes. "Marquis, I want a divorce not just because of the concubine, but because I know clearly what my life will be like if I continue living with you. You have been at war for years. Upon returning, you didn't ask a single greeting. You didn't ask how I lived these past years, or if I had any difficulties. You never asked about the relationship between Landon and me, you just assumed we must be harmonious. If there is any conflict, it must be our fault. Either I am petty, or the child is disobedient. The Marquis will certainly choose the familiar method of handling things. Is that not so?" Thomas's face became extremely unsightly, but he didn't refute a single word. "I knew I guessed right," I said with a bitter smile. "In my past life, my family was exactly like that. Whenever something happened, my father didn't care to distinguish right from wrong. He immediately blamed everything on my mother. Then my mother would scold me. The whole family created a perfect kick the cat effect. The person with the house in the house vents their anger on the weaker ones. You are the same, Thomas. The only difference is that in front of you Landon and I have no status, so you handle everything by saying both are at fault. 50 lashes each." I looked straight at him and spoke clearly. "If I don't divorce you, I have to accept you taking a concubine. Actually, that wouldn't be much to talk about. You are right, in the noble circles of the capital, everyone takes concubines. You are a newly titled noble, surely many people want to marry their daughters into the Marquis' manor. On the first day you returned, I even thought about discussing a long-term partnership with you. Because I fundamentally don't care how many concubines you take, only someone who truly loves you would care about you. As for me, I don't love you so I don't care." Thomas's face stiffened. He clearly didn't believe I said I didn't love him. In his eyes, I was still the original Grace. The woman who once risked death to cling to him and wouldn't let go. How could such a woman say she didn't love him? But I continued. It's just that when I saw you didn't bother to distinguish black from white, convicting me before asking a single word, I understood clearly I cannot cooperate with you. Because in your eyes, I am not a human with reason and a voice, but merely a possession. But to be husband and wife, we must be of one mind, we must be equal, we must be heard. I want the right to explain to reason. If you don't consider me a wife, then naturally you cannot be my husband, Thomas retorted angrily. But everyone is like that, I replied. Then let me ask you, why did you go to the battlefield? If it was just to have glory, wealth, a house full of beauties, and overwhelming power, then you can just copy those nobles and enjoy all the luxury. But if you want a true home, you must know how to choose to let go of some of your desires, because true feelings must be exchanged for true feelings. There is no reason why you have the right to trample on me, yet I must still respect you. You go to war, getting suppressed out there, and come home to vent your anger on us. Marquis, you admire those nobles and wish to be like them, but ask yourself, do they have anything worth imitating? Humans living in this world must live their own lives, imitating others isn't living well. And in this house, that way of living won't work. He wanted to use patriarchal rules to suppress me. Then he would definitely lose. Consider it his bad luck to meet me. But also consider it his good luck, because thanks to me, he avoided the future of a broken home and ruined family. I stood waiting for a while. Seeing him still standing there in a daze, unable to say a sentence, I felt it was no longer interesting. I turned to walk away. At the door, he finally spoke up, his voice hoarse as if he had to use all his strength to speak. I come from a humble background. Suddenly becoming wealthy, I truly don't know how to be a marquis. I only knew to copy others. Now that I think about it, I was indeed clumsy and unlike anyone else. I lost my composure. I apologize. I stopped and replied calmly, then please, Marquis, consider carefully for yourself. Why did so many soldiers die on the battlefield? Yet the one titled Marquis in the end was you. A person who holds both Buddha and hell in his heart can stand out among 10,000 troops. Naturally, that is no accident. No one can point out this principle for you. Only you can wake up to it yourself. After saying that, I walked straight away without looking back. In the corner, Landon stepped out from his hiding spot, rushed into my arms, and hugged me tightly, not letting go. Mother, if you leave, what should I do? He cried. In ancient times, a woman after divorce had no right to take her children, especially the biological son of the husband. Moreover, Landon was not my biological son, but Thomas's, so I couldn't take him with me. The only person I could take was Vivian. The girl did not have an official name in the Chen family genealogy. Previously, I deliberately didn't file adoption papers to prevent any issues if the divorce failed. Now that everything was done, Vivian was officially my person, so naturally, she would go with me. I gently patted Landon's back to comfort him. I will talk to your father so you can come to visit me anytime. But Landon looked at me with heartbreak. Every time you want something, do you always have to trade something for it? He was thinking of the things I had given up as gifts, blueprints, prescriptions, business plans. But I just smiled, because you are worth it. For you, I can trade anything. Those blueprints, formulas, and plans, compared to you, they are nothing. Landon hugged me tightly, his tears soaking my shirt. Mother, just go. I will try to study hard and pass the imperial exam as the top scholar soon. When that time comes, I will definitely come to visit you. I swear I won't let you wait long. I laughed out loud and playfully slapped his shoulder. This brat. Do you want to cut ties with me? If you don't pass the exam, are you not allowed to see me? My house is just at the end of the other street. Even if your leg was broken, you could crawl over. I only divorced your father. I didn't cut ties with you. Are you planning to be a blatantly unfilial son and turn your back on your mother? Landon burst into laughter, then cried again. I will be filial to you for my whole life. His small mouth was as sweet as honey. I hope in the future, when he meets the person he loves, his mouth will be just as sweet. The day I left the Marquis' manor, I left everything I couldn't take for Landon, accompanied by clear documents. Thomas initially didn't want to take advantage of me and intended to calculate the price to pay me back. But when he found out the true value of those things, he choked, silently pretending he had never said anything. He only said one sentence. In the future, Landon can visit you whenever he wants, he doesn't need to ask me. If you need any help, you can come find me. Consider it my repayment for you raising Landon. After that conversation, I vaguely felt something strange. He began to respect me. It was the kind of respect reserved for an intellectual equal, a person with a mind. Perhaps my words that day truly made him realize many things. Thinking back, it's funny, those principles are common knowledge in modern times. It was just due to the time gap, or what we call information asymmetry. From then on, I officially became a happy, single, wealthy woman. I took Vivian home to live with me, filed papers to register her, officially adopting her under my name, and changed her name to Vivian Song. As soon as we arrived in the capital, Vivian cried bitterly, throwing a tantrum about everything. Her brother ran away, her mother went missing, leaving her alone at the suburban villa. She was both angry and aggrieved. After that, she insisted I promise that from now on, wherever I went, I had to take her with me. I told Vivian, before you are 18, if I am free, I will try to take you along. But after you are 18, I can't do that anymore. Vivian thought 18 was still very far away, so she happily nodded in agreement. She even set a condition. Every month, mother cannot leave me behind more than 3 times. I felt this girl was truly a little angel, cute beyond words and so generous with me too. So, I took advantage of when she was asleep to sneak out for a late-night snack. The next morning, I calmly lectured her. You can't eat too many sweets, fried foods, or grilled meat, okay? Look at mother doesn't eat them, right? Vivian, though craving them badly, still tried to nod. Then I won't eat them either. The joy of raising a daughter. I truly felt it, until one day I came home late and found Vivian still awake. She pried my mouth open and smelled the scent of grilled meat. Oh my God, my sky collapsed at that moment. With no other choice, I had to make a pact with her. Once a week we eat grilled meat, sweets and fried food included. Meanwhile, every day after school, Landon ran over to my house to learn business with me, practice martial arts, help me plan ideas, and arrange matters inside and out. He progressed extremely fast. My divorce from Thomas seemed to make him mature a lot. Indeed, in any era, parents divorcing is a major event in a child's life. But I also understood that this was something only he could overcome himself, no one could help him. And I believed he could do it. Not long after, Mr. Charles came looking for me. He angrily recounted that the new madam of the Marquis Manor, Caroline Gu, had cut the tuition fees meant for him. She argued that he was only teaching 1 child, yet he was given a separate private classroom, which was too wasteful. So, all the previous benefits were slashed clean. Mr. Charles was used to good treatment, so naturally, he couldn't accept this cut. I understood Caroline's perspective. She was the woman Thomas just married. More importantly, she wasn't a concubine but had righteously become the main wife, Madame Chen. However, upon taking over the Marquis Manor, she discovered that while such a huge estate looked majestic, the daily expenses were enormous, truly like pouring money into water. And Thomas's ability to earn money wasn't outstanding. He mainly lived off the emperor's rewards, and rewards couldn't be relied upon forever. So, it was understandable that Caroline cut expenses. It's just that the person whose pay was cut certainly wouldn't be happy. Therefore, I proposed inviting Mr. Charles to come and teach at my house. I planned for Landon to take the imperial examination this year. As long as he passed as a Tongsheng, his reputation would surely be known. By then, I wanted to open a proper academy. The Orchid Academy. In this era, a good academy is a resource hard to find. I intended to establish a formal, disciplined education system that could train talented people and build a reputation. Later, the people who graduated from there would all be my acquaintances, my support in the world. I thought very clearly, whether relying on gratitude from Thomas or trading benefits with nobles, those are things easily changed. Here today, gone tomorrow. Only training talent yourself is a long-term investment. Mr. Charles agreed immediately. He went back to report to Caroline. Caroline was happy to save money but also felt annoyed, feeling as if I was intentionally slapping her face. She came to find me, but I didn't meet her, only sending a message. With my current financial power, hiring a tutor named Zhao, Qian, Sun or Lai, 1 for each subject, is no problem. If Madam doesn't want to yield to the person, I won't force it. Caroline heard this and fell silent. Then she immediately packed Mr. Charles up and sent him to my house without another word. The result? Everyone was happy. I told Landon, this is called a complete victory. He nodded, understanding yet not fully understanding. So if I pass the exam as a Shukai, will that help mother win again? He was now taller than me, truly a growing teenager, a future 1.88-meter male god who would compete for the heroine. I patted his shoulder and said seriously, when you achieve success, mother also shares the joy. That is a complete victory. But if you force yourself just for my sake, then that victory has no meaning. He sat down, placed my hand on his head and smiled. Mother, rest assured, I understand your meaning. That year in the imperial examination, Landon truly passed. He became the youngest Jukai of the year, his fame spreading far and wide. My Orchid Academy also officially opened. I didn't limit my background, but I organized entrance exams and interviews. Some people found it unsuitable and left, others were curious and came, finding it strange and exciting. I applied what I could learn from modern times, combined with the spirit of traditional education, without detaching from reality. I only wanted to live well in this era, not to be an invincible heroine with a golden finger. I thought simply, utilize the information gap between the two eras to earn some money and live peacefully. Do what I can, don't force myself. In the academy, there were children from rich families and also poor students. Initially, there were frequent conflicts between the two sides. I intentionally organized several outdoor training experiences, deliberately creating challenging situations to force the students to cooperate to overcome them. The result was that the gap between classes gradually blurred. Although not completely harmonized, the first cracks in the wall had appeared, and I believed that was a good start. Landon made many friends. He was no longer like in the original book, lonely, suppressed, growing up alone. On the contrary, during the training sessions, he demonstrated responsibility, wisdom, and loyalty, making many people respect him and willing to follow him. He became the most beloved male student in the class. And Vivian was also the most outstanding girl in the female class. At first, I thought she was shy and easily bullied because she had lived under pressure since childhood. But after raising her for a few years, I discovered she was quick-witted, intelligent, lively, and extremely reasonable. She was also a master of verbal combat, frequently defending her friends, pointing out right and wrong, and analyzing clearly. Everyone loved her. I was very happy. The children gradually had more support in their lives. I once heard a perspective. True independence is not just relying on oneself, but having many places to rely on: family, friendship, love, everything. Each type of emotion gives us strength. That is solid independence. I completely agreed. I also hoped Landon and Vivian could build many anchors in their lives, so when facing difficulties, they would have many paths to solve them, not just a single path that leads to collapse if broken. As for me, I was also step by step building my own anchors. Whether transmigrating or not, I still wanted to live my own life well. In the blink of an eye, several years passed. Landon passed as a Jurin at 13, and by 16, he passed as a Jinshi. Entering the palace examination, because he was too handsome, he was selected as the Tanwa. His teacher, Mr. Charles, regretted it deeply, saying that if Landon had won all three top spots, Zhuangjian, Bangyan, and Tanwa, it would have been a unique glory recorded in history books. But I thought this was good enough. Who knows, maybe this is heaven's arrangement. After all, Landon is not the male lead, only the male supporting character. How could he hog all the spotlight? That same year, Prince Dominic, the 9th prince, who had lived on the border since childhood, returned to the capital. As soon as he appeared, he immediately overwhelmed Landon's aura. He was truly born handsome, with an arrogant, proud, and unruly temperament. But that devil-may-care attitude was deadly attractive, making it hard for anyone to look away. That year was also when the heroine, Lily, encountered a mishap. Lily was the eldest daughter of Chancellor Su. Her mother had died early, and she was far from favored by her father. Her personality was quiet and reserved, a stark contrast to the drama surrounding her. She was rejected by her fiancé, Prince Edward, the 5th prince. On the very same day, he got engaged to her younger half-sister, and the whole family accepted it happily, as if nothing was wrong. It was truly hard to understand. As a chancellor, how could he swallow such humiliation? If it were me, and a man dared to dump my eldest daughter to marry my younger daughter, I would smash his head in, even if he were a prince. As soon as Prince Dominic, the 9th prince, returned, he gave Prince Edward a sound beating. After that, he personally confessed his crime to the emperor, speaking bluntly. Your son cannot accept someone like 5th brother. I never thought our family would have someone so shameless, breaking an engagement with the older sister to marry the younger one, and then strutting around proudly as if he were right. The emperor was choked with anger and ended up punishing both princes. And it was from this incident that the male and female leads began to develop feelings, opening up a dramatic and romantic love story. As for Landon, he hadn't met the heroine yet, but I knew that day would come sooner or later. Sure enough, not long after, Princess Margaret organized a banquet, inviting the sons of noble families to attend, wanting to select a husband for her daughter, Lady Annabel. Princess Margaret even sent a separate invitation to Landon. I began to worry, because according to the original book, Landon would be framed during this banquet. So, I took the initiative to find Princess Margaret and asked to take charge of preparing all the dim sum and drinks for the party, so I could easily control the situation. Princess Margaret agreed, as she also wanted the banquet to be unique and fresh. I poured all my effort into creating new pastries, strictly instructing the kitchen staff to be exceptionally careful. As for Landon, I warned him not to miss a single detail. If a drink leaves your sight, absolutely do not drink it again. The restroom for men is in the outer courtyard. If anyone tells you to go into the inner courtyard, it is definitely a plot. Do not act alone. Always have someone with you. Do not arbitrarily change your seating or location, because disasters often happen when plans change. Landon sensed my tension. He was now a grown man, handsome and elegant. His bright eyes looked at me seriously. "Mother, are you worried about me? Do you know something is going to happen?" I shook my head slightly, then nodded again. There is a saying, first is fate, second is luck, third is feng shui. I feel that today might be a critical turning point in your life, so I am a little anxious. He smiled reassuringly. "Mother, rest assured. You have taught me for so many years, you must believe that the son you raised is not foolish." I looked up at him. Truly, he had grown up, he had become a wonderful young man. Perhaps I should let go a little and let him fly with his own wings. That day, I sat in the area reserved for female guests and met the heroine, Lily, for the first time. She was a quiet, composed girl, dressed modestly, behaving very gently. Her whole person exuded an elegant clarity, like a pure white flower. Not a monotonous white, but a clean, pure, classy white that made people want to look a second time. Her younger sister, Molly Sue, was the complete opposite. Molly was radiant and seductive, currently immersed in her romance with Prince Edward. Every step, every glance, every gesture seemed to be showing off. She happily accepted all the congratulations from the guests, grouping up as if to intentionally affirm that she was the chosen one, while Lily was the abandoned one. She even overshadowed the presence of Lady Annabel, the daughter of Princess Margaret. The lady was displeased, rolling her eyes in disdain, then pulling Vivian's song and her group of young ladies away. The atmosphere at the banquet suddenly became quiet. Just then, someone poured tea for Lily. She didn't drink it, she just quietly stood up and left. I breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately ordered someone to quietly follow Lily from a distance, but instructed them strictly, if there were signs of being discovered, drop the tail immediately, do not get exposed. At that moment, Princess Margaret teased me. "What is it? Have you set your sights on the girl from the Sue family? With the Chen family's current status, the Chancellor would certainly agree to marry his daughter to you." I smiled and shook my head. "It's not that, I just looked at her face and felt her fortune wasn't right, she seems about to meet misfortune. Today is the princess's flower appreciation banquet. If something happens, I'm afraid the impact won't be small. If possible, I hope your highness increases vigilance to avoid any mishaps." Princess Margaret was surprised. "Face? Just a little," I replied modestly. "I believe you, because I know you are someone who doesn't speak nonsense." So she immediately deployed more patrols everywhere, even transferring guards from other princesses' residences to support. Anyone who wanted to play dirty tricks in the princess's manor today was surely asking for death. Done with that, Princess Margaret got excited. "Come on, read my fortune for me then." I was speechless. "I'm sorry, in the story you are just a background character, you don't have an ending to read." I looked at her for a moment, then laughed. "Your highness radiates noble air, how can a mortal like me read you? But just a glance shows your highness is extremely wealthy. I plan to open a clubhouse to sell these dim sum. I wonder if your highness could pass some of your wealth luck to me. After all, I spent so much effort making these cakes, I don't want to waste them. Why don't we partner up to start a food business?" Princess Margaret laughed heartily. She knew the value of these cakes well, so she agreed immediately. We happily discussed our money-making plans, but our joy didn't last long. A senior maid ran over to report, "There is trouble in the front courtyard." The front courtyard was where the men gathered. My heart instantly tightened. My intuition told me it involved Landon. I hurriedly followed to the scene. Indeed, someone was publicly slandering Landon, intentionally using my affairs to attack him. The person sneered. "I heard that Brother Chen's mother, Madame Song, is a merchant living in extravagance, even encrusting gold and silver on her chopsticks and bowls. Brother Chen is a man of high learning. You should value the people's livelihood and reject luxury. Why don't you advise your mother a little?" I didn't know who he was, but I hated this kind of blood-spitting slander. The money I earned was my own, I didn't eat from his family's pot, so why was he acting so high and mighty? I turned to look at Landon, my heart aching a bit that he was being envied and badmouthed, but he laughed loudly. My mother is frugal and sensible. She is also a very good person. She has helped countless poor students. Can you not see that? You only stare at the fact that she spends money. People say what you lack is what you focus on. If you lack money, you can frankly ask to borrow from my mother. Seeing how pitiful you are, she might even give it to you for free. Don't sit there being jealous. In your entire life, you won't earn that amount of money anyway. The person was choked into silence, his face flushing red, and he stormed off in anger. Then another person spoke up. Madame Song uses arbitrary methods, suppressing merchants, behaving domineeringly. This is a serious crime. Charged, it could cost her life. Landon looked at that person with a cold face, waiting a few seconds before speaking. Oh, so it's someone who once lost to my mother in the marketplace. Doing business at a loss and not reflecting on yourself, yet going around framing others. Words are like swords, they kill without drawing blood. You are so vicious, even in 10 lifetimes, you wouldn't win against my mother. A person like you, I am ashamed to be friends with. After saying that, he led his friends away. Others also gradually retreated, leaving only a few people standing there in awkward silence. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. This son was worth the effort of raising. His tongue was truly poisonous, enough to make people explode with anger. I turned back to Princess Margaret, meeting her teasing gaze. I laughed helplessly. Raising a son is truly exhausting for the heart. Princess Margaret sighed. Isn't it for everyone? We had just sat down for not long when another maid ran over to report. This time, something happened in the back courtyard. We rushed to the back courtyard. We saw Molly crying, claiming she had lost a hairpin bestowed by the emperor. She begged everyone to help find it, saying if it wasn't found, it would be a capital crime. I had long forgotten the specific details of the original book. I only remembered clearly that losing the hairpin was just an excuse. The real goal was to drug Lily, taking the opportunity to humiliate her and ruin her reputation. But in the story, Lily eventually escaped and, moreover, accidentally saved Landon, who was also being framed at the time. She said a few encouraging words to him, which he engraved in his heart for a lifetime. This time, I wasn't sure if I could change anything. I only hoped Landon could stay out of it. Everyone split up to search for the hairpin. A maid led the way and opened a room door, but inside was not Lily, nor Landon, nor Prince Dominic. Instead, it was the officials from the capital prefecture and bailiffs sitting there solemnly, along with the young servants, maids, and hooligans that Molly had secretly hired. Molly's face changed instantly, she almost fainted on the spot, but the princess's imperial physician calmly exposed her fake fainting. Molly had to wake up and was detained for questioning. She desperately denied it, saying she didn't know those people. At this moment, Lady Annabel stepped forward. She didn't lose any hairpin. The hairpin is still on her person. My sisters and I were playing hide and seek in the rockery, and we saw her every move clearly. The lady ordered a body search. Molly struggled, holding her sleeve tight, but she couldn't stop the senior maid who was stronger than her. The hairpin was pulled out right in front of everyone. Molly immediately turned to look at Prince Edward for help. He initially intended to use his status as a prince to pressure people, but seeing Princess Margaret's cold and deep gaze, he finally shut his mouth, huffed coldly, and turned away. The capital prefecture ordered the arrest of Molly. As for the specific charges, they would have to wait for the various factions to fight it out before deciding. A chaotic farce finally came to an end. Although Princess Margaret was annoyed, luckily no major incident occurred, and her dignity was preserved. What infuriated her was that someone had planted a spy in her own princess Manor. Molly didn't have that capability, the only person who could do that was Prince Edward. Molly wanted to test Prince Edward, fearing he pitied Lily, so she planned to ruin her. Prince Edward was angry about being beaten by Prince Dominic, so he wanted to use this to retaliate. Two crazy people conspiring together, staging this plot in the princess's manor. Princess Margaret didn't want to get involved in the prince's struggles, but since the incident happened in her house, she couldn't swallow this anger. Therefore, she immediately reported to the emperor that Prince Edward had secretly smuggled people into the princess manor. Immediately, Prince Edward was grounded. As for Molly, the emperor personally issued a decree for severe punishment, annulling the engagement between the two. The emperor also reprimanded Chancellor Su, telling him to curb his habit of making random matches, lest he bring the wrong son-in-law into the house again. He even specially issued a decree praising Lily, saying she had a dignified character and deserved to be a virtuous wife and good mother. Because that day, Lily accidentally saved Prince Dominic, who was poisoned, everything coincided, causing the script in the book to completely veer off course. At this point, I no longer dared to claim I knew the plot in advance. The storyline had changed so much I couldn't recognize it anymore. On the carriage back home, Landon drank water in gulps and ate snacks nonstop. Today, to avoid trouble, he hadn't eaten or drunk anything. Now he was unbearably hungry and thirsty. Vivian blinked at me, asking for praise, her face beaming. Today, everyone worked hard. Before the banquet, I reminded Princess Margaret to increase vigilance. Landon silently observed from the side gate, caught the hooligans, and even invited the capital prefecture officials. Vivian led the young ladies to play hide and seek around the rockery, finally witnessing with her own eyes Molly hiding the hairpin, securing the most important evidence. We never discussed it beforehand, but in the end, we coordinated smoothly, each completing our task voluntarily. Perhaps this is the instinct of supporting characters hugging each other for warmth. On the way back, Vivian asked me, "Mother, is that lady named Lily the one favored by destiny? The daughter of heaven's mandate you once told us about?" I used to tell the two children the rough plot of the book like a fairy tale. I told them that if this world were a novel, there would definitely be a male lead and a female lead called the people of destiny. And if you really meet such people, it is best to stay far away from them, because they are favored by fate in an unusual way, I explained. At that time, Vivian naively asked me, "Isn't it good to be near lucky people? Why stay away?" I looked at the girl with eyes full of pity. Because energy in life is limited. If one person takes too much luck, what will happen to those around them? At that time, Vivian didn't understand yet, but Landon immediately chimed in, "They will definitely be very unlucky." "That's right," I confirmed. "Very, very unlucky, going through the same disaster. They are the survivors, while others are the sacrifices. When they love each other passionately, the people around them are pushed to become tools or background props. They can overcome anything by letting others pay the price." Before reading stories, I used to wonder, why is it that when the heroine runs away, the male lead has to kill her servant? Why is it that, when the goddess doesn't love the demon lord wants to annihilate the world? Why, to prove the male lead is dominant, must he arbitrarily kill people, slaughtering someone's entire family? What logic is that? Isn't the life of an ox or a horse still a life? If I were a small character in such a world, I would definitely beg the male and female leads to get married quickly and stop encountering waves. Because ordinary people cannot bear becoming props for someone else's love. I don't need glory, I don't need a halo, I just need to live a peaceful life. To have someone I love, someone who loves me, a warm family, a peaceful living environment, sufficient living conditions, help people when I can, and don't hesitate to accept help when needed. Just that is happiness. When getting off the carriage, Landon suddenly said, "Mother, let's leave the capital. I will ask His Majesty to transfer me to a small post outside the city. Let's wait for the mess in the capital to settle down before returning." I nodded immediately in agreement. Staying in the capital, even if we didn't want to, we would be swept into the gossip. Today's events were just the prelude. Many more plot points were about to explode, and Landon was the excellent male supporting character in the book. He couldn't live quietly forever. True to his word, he immediately wrote a memorial asking to be transferred. The emperor neither approved nor rejected it, he kept the memorial without replying. Clearly, he valued Landon very much and intended to keep him by Prince Dominic's side. But Landon was determined. He went to see Prince Dominic personally. Prince Dominic mocked and provoked him. The two exchanged a few moves. Landon used his full strength but still lost to the prince. However, after losing, what surprised people was not the result, but Prince Dominic's attitude towards Landon. His eyes held a bit more respect. He asked, "Why aren't you like the others, hiding your talent on purpose? Everyone who fought me before didn't dare to use their full strength." Landon replied, "I think your highness doesn't like being deceived, and neither do I." Hearing this, Prince Dominic's gaze became much more serious. He said in a low voice, "I have no right to interfere in royal father's matters. You really want to leave the capital? Then figure it out yourself. I won't stop you nor will I help." Landon smiled, bowing to give thanks. "Thank you, your highness." And that was his true goal. In the original book, The emperor actually intended to choose Prince Dominic, but because of suspicions, Prince Dominic never trusted his father's kindness. The two sides had many misunderstandings and couldn't be close. Landon understood this well, so he just needed Prince Dominic not to make things difficult for him. No need to help, just don't block the way. After that, Landon went to see Thomas by himself. Over the years he had mainly lived with me, only visiting the Marquis' manor during festivals, and each time they would argue a few sentences before he left. Thomas didn't hold him back. First, he knew I raised Landon well. Second, Caroline Gu had borne him several children, so he no longer placed too much weight on the eldest son. But this time, Landon still went to find him, because he had understood a principle. It is normal for a son to ask his father for help, there is no need for pride. When Thomas heard the news that Landon had voluntarily asked for a post far away, he was furious, because once transferred out of the capital, returning would be incredibly difficult. But facing Landon's firmness, Thomas eventually gritted his teeth and yielded, using his own merit to submit a petition for his son. This time, it succeeded. The emperor issued a decree transferring Landon to take a post in the Jiangnan region, a place where culture flourished, the climate was pleasant, and could be considered a peaceful land. I breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately after, I began liquidating my assets in the capital. Whatever needed to be held tight I held, whatever could be cooperated on, I opened for cooperation. Whatever should be gifted, I chose worthy people to gift. On the day we left the capital, Princess Margaret came to see us off. She was the one who benefited most from my industries in the capital. Initially, it was cooperation for profit, but over time, some true friendship had developed between us. She looked at Landon, her eyes full of hidden meaning. Leaving so suddenly, I thought we could go a bit further together. Who knew we would be parting so soon? Beside her, Lady Annabel secretly glanced at Landon, her eyes sparkling with shyness, occasionally whispering to Vivian. The shy look of a young maiden was clearly visible, like a spring flower just beginning to bloom. I smiled and said, "The lady is someone who dares to love and dares to hate. She is an extremely good young lady whom I cherish very much. But I am just like the princess, a mother. I only hope my children will be happy. If there is fate, they will come together, if not there is no need to force it. With a wonderful mother like the princess, I believe the lady will definitely have a peaceful life." Though I knew my son was just acting the part of the obedient gentleman, I kept that to myself. Princess Margaret stood before me, speaking very softly. "You don't need to be so reserved in front of me. We have known each other for years. I consider myself worthy of your trust. Grace, the mountains are high and the roads are far. Take care of yourself. I hope one day you will return to the capital." Saying that, she straightened her back and stepped onto her carriage, looking noble and graceful, her back as straight as in the beginning. Proud but not arrogant. Behind her, Lady Annabel took a step and looked back, as if wanting to hold onto something. But Landon didn't look up at her once. Finally, she gritted her teeth and got into the carriage. As soon as she sat down, I heard a sobbing cry of, "Mother," followed by Princess Margaret covering her mouth, the voice fading away. I couldn't help but laugh, truly adorable. Teenage romance, if not entangled with royal power, life and death, is truly something pure and moving. Vivian huffed, turning to blame Landon for being a block of wood, unable to feel the girl's affection, demanding justice for her best friend. Landon remained calm and replied, "She is only a 15-year-old girl, she doesn't understand what love is. I am not the type of shameless person to take advantage of that." Vivian rolled her eyes. "Oh, how does brother know she is 15? You paid attention, huh?" "Oh my son is not simple." Landon didn't bother to answer, quietly urging his horse forward. When the group arrived at the Willow Pavilion rest stop, we encountered Prince Dominic and Lily waiting there. Clearly, they were waiting for Landon. Lily stepped forward, bowing gently. "Master Chen, thank you for saving me that day. This is a small gift, I hope you will accept it. I didn't come to thank you personally that day, because I didn't want to expose your identity and cause trouble. I am not ungrateful. Today you are leaving. If I don't say thank you now, it will be too late. I wish you a bright future, a smooth official career, and that we may meet again by fate." Only then did I know that during the flower banquet, after being drugged, Lily had wanted to confront Molly directly. But it was Landon who gave her the antidote and advised her to report to the officials instead. Because he knew if she stood up to confront them herself, her words would be twisted and fabricated. Even if she did nothing wrong, her reputation would be tarnished. One should not place oneself in a dangerous situation. If you can borrow someone else's strength, do not push yourself out as a shield. Lily listened and chose to hide, so even though she escaped disaster, she didn't get the reputation of being sharp and shrewish as in the original book. Prince Dominic raised a cup of wine to toss Landon, saying only 2 words: take care. His eyes looking at Landon were complex, containing regret, admiration, a wish to keep him, and a bit of wariness. As for me, my heart was also a mess of 100 emotions. The gentle, sincere male supporting character, Landon, has now left. No one knows what the future holds. Will Prince Dominic ascend the throne? Will the Chen family be implicated? Will we ever return to this capital? Everything is unclear. I only know that we have stepped out of the vortex of gossip in the capital, preparing to start a truly simple and practical life. We want to go build a city. Not for fighting, not for power struggles, but so that in that place, people can live and work in peace, have food and clothes, have beds to sleep in, and have stored grain. To have hope for tomorrow. I know that path is very arduous, but we will always keep walking, never stopping. True destiny is not a script written by fate, but a path carved by our own choices. The story of Grace and Landon teaches us that we are never merely supporting characters in someone else's narrative. Instead of succumbing to toxic cycles of obsessive romance or family neglect, Grace empowers herself through pragmatism, education, and financial independence. She proves that the greatest golden finger is not magic, but a resilient mind. By choosing to walk away from the vortex of drama, we discover that true freedom lies in building our own anchors, knowledge, self-worth, and authentic love. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.